Welcome, brave souls, to the rocky shores and fog-drenched coastlines of Rhode Island. Beyond the historic ports and charming seaside towns, the lighthouses of this small state stand as silent sentinels. But not all watch only the waves. Some lighthouses are haunted, their lights never truly extinguished, guiding not ships but restless spirits who cannot leave the shores they died defending. Tonight, we step into the world of Rhode Island's haunted lighthouses, where whispers echo through fog, phantom footsteps patrol the spiral stairs, and the cries of lost sailors and lighthouse keepers haunt the night. These are the 25 haunted lighthouses in Rhode Island, where lights never die. Beavertail Lighthouse, perched on the rocky cliffs of Jamestown, Rhode Island, is one of the oldest and most storied maritime landmarks along the eastern seaboard. Built to guide sailors safely through treacherous waters, its towering structure has long been a sentinel against the dangers of the Atlantic. Yet beyond its practical purpose, Beavertail has earned a reputation for a different kind of vigilance, one that exists in the realm of the supernatural. Over the decades, sailors, historians, and visitors have reported strange occurrences that suggest the lighthouse is haunted by the spirits of those lost at sea. Shadowy figures, disembodied cries, and flickering lights all contribute to the eerie atmosphere that has made Beavertail Lighthouse a magnet for those drawn to the mysteries of the paranormal. Visitors approaching the lighthouse often notice an immediate change in the environment. The wind off the Atlantic carries not only a chill, but also a weight that feels almost tangible, as though the cliffs themselves remember the countless lives lost in shipwrecks below. On foggy nights, the fog seems to thicken unnaturally near the lighthouse, swallowing sound and light in a way that amplifies the sensation of isolation. Witnesses frequently report hearing cries or calls for help carried on the wind, voices that rise and fall as if drifting from the rocks below. These auditory phenomena are particularly intense during storms or heavy fog, when the sounds of the ocean mask but never fully drown the ghostly echoes. The cries are often described as sorrowful, desperate, and hauntingly human, a reminder of the sailors who met their fate in the jagged waters surrounding the point. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Beavertail haunting. Visitors have reported seeing forms moving along the rocks below the lighthouse, or appearing briefly in the fog before vanishing. Some figures are described as sailors, dressed in period clothing, walking slowly along the cliff edge as though retracing their final steps. Others appear closer to the lighthouse itself, lingering near the base or ascending the spiral staircase, only to disappear into the light or mist. One particularly striking account involves a dark figure standing at the lantern room during the dead of night, gazing out to sea as if tending to the light. Witnesses describe an unsettling awareness that the figure is watching both the waves and the living, silently acknowledging the presence of those who have come to explore the lighthouse after hours. The lighthouse beacon itself is often implicated in paranormal activity. Some visitors have reported the light flickering, dimming, or even rotating on its own, at times when it should remain steady. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that these fluctuations are more than mechanical malfunctions, believing instead that the light may be signaling to spirits rather than ships, guiding the lost or acknowledging those already claimed by the sea. A few have claimed to witness the light sweeping across the rocks in patterns that mimic maritime distress signals, as if the lighthouse is communicating in a language only the dead understand. These moments leave a lasting impression, making the keeper's role seem less about human duty and more about maintaining a bridge between worlds. Phantom footsteps are another recurring phenomenon. Visitors walking through the lighthouse sometimes hear the unmistakable sound of boots or shoes on wooden floors and stone steps, echoing through the tower when no one else is present. The steps may ascend and descend the spiral staircase, pace along the lantern room, or appear suddenly behind the observer. Some report that the footsteps respond to their movements, approaching when they pause and retreating when they advance, creating the unnerving impression of being accompanied by an unseen presence. Paranormal investigators have noted these patterns, suggesting that they may reflect the residual activity of past lighthouse keepers or the restless spirits of sailors who perished nearby. Tactile sensations also play a role in the haunting of Beavertail Lighthouse. Guests have reported sudden brushes of cold air, light touches on their shoulders, or the impression of someone passing closely by in narrow staircases. These experiences are often fleeting but deeply unsettling, reinforcing the sense that the lighthouse is actively occupied by entities beyond the living. Many visitors describe a feeling of being observed continuously, as if the spirits are aware of their every step, silently marking their presence while remaining just out of reach. The history of Beavertail Lighthouse adds depth to the haunting. Established in the 18th century, it has been a witness to countless shipwrecks, storms, and tragedies. Sailors relied on its guiding light, yet the jagged coastline claimed many who approached too closely in fog, darkness, or tempestuous seas. Those lost at sea and those who perished in storms seem to have left an imprint on the lighthouse, creating a concentrated hub of spiritual energy. Tales of phantom keepers who continue their nightly duties reinforce the connection between the living structure and the lingering dead, suggesting that the lighthouse itself serves as a liminal space between the mortal world and the afterlife. Visitors often remark that the lighthouse and its surroundings carry a palpable tension, a blend of awe, fear, and melancholy. While the ocean crashes against the cliffs and the wind whistles through the rocks, there is a sense that the past is never far away. Some choose to explore the lighthouse at night, hoping to witness the shadows, hear the cries, or feel the presence of the unseen keeper. Photographers and paranormal investigators attempt to capture evidence of apparitions, lights, or movement, though tangible proof is rare, leaving much of the experience subjective yet profoundly affecting. Beavertail Lighthouse stands as a sentinel, not only for sailors, but also for the spirits bound to its cliffs. The cries on the wind, the footsteps echoing in the tower, the flickering beacon, and the shadowy forms among the rocks all serve as reminders that the lighthouse is more than a historical monument. It is a living testament to lives lost in the mysteries of the sea. Visitors leave with the haunting impression that the lighthouse is never empty, that a phantom keeper continues his vigil after midnight, and that the spirits of sailors long gone still roam the foggy cliffs, watching and waiting for those who dare to enter their domain. Block Island, Southeast Lighthouse, standing proudly on the rocky cliffs of Block Island, Rhode Island, is a symbol of guidance and survival for sailors navigating the perilous Atlantic waters. Since its construction, the lighthouse has endured centuries of violent storms, fog, and shipwrecks, serving as a beacon for those trying to escape the ocean's unforgiving grasp. Yet, over time, the lighthouse has developed a reputation not only for its maritime significance, but for its eerie, unexplained phenomena. Visitors report experiences that suggest the spirits of sailors lost to the sea, as well as those who tended the lighthouse, continue to linger in and around the tower. Whispers on the wind, shadowy figures, and flickering lights all contribute to a haunting atmosphere that captivates and unsettles those who come in search of its history. Those who approach the lighthouse often sense an immediate shift in the environment. The ocean wind, normally sharp and bracing, can carry an unnatural chill, sometimes descending into sudden cold pockets near the tower or along the cliff edges. Guests have described feeling the weight of invisible presence pressing subtly against their shoulders or following them along the walking paths. During foggy nights, the cliffs seem to close in, and the roar of waves combines with the subtle whispers of unseen voices. These auditory experiences are among the most reported at the lighthouse. Visitors often hear faint calls for help or murmured warnings carried on the wind, as though the spirits are replaying the terror and desperation of those lost during storms long past. The whispers sometimes appear to respond to movement, growing louder as visitors pause or slow, then fading when they continue along the paths. Shadowy figures are another common occurrence at the lighthouse. Guests frequently report seeing indistinct silhouettes moving along stairways that no longer exist, or appearing to float just beyond the edges of the lantern room. These figures are often described as human in form but lacking clarity, giving them an ethereal quality. Some witnesses believe these figures are sailors who met tragic ends at sea. their spirits drawn to the lighthouse that once guided them. Others suggest that they could be past keepers, still climbing the steps and tending the light long after death. One particularly striking account describes a dark hooded figure standing silently in the lantern room at midnight, gazing out over the ocean as though maintaining a perpetual watch. Witnesses often report that the presence is so palpable it can be felt without being seen, leaving an impression of being observed and acknowledged by the past. The lighthouse beacon itself is a focal point for paranormal activity. Visitors have reported the light flickering or rotating in ways that defy explanation. Some describe the beam sweeping across the cliffs and rocks in rhythmic patterns, almost like a signal directed at the spirits themselves rather than the sailors at sea. On occasion, the light appears to pulse or dim at random, as if communicating silently with unseen entities. Paranormal investigators have speculated that the energy of the lighthouse, accumulated over centuries of storms, shipwrecks, and tragedy, may interact with the physical mechanisms of the beacon, producing phenomena that seem deliberate and intentional. These unexplained changes in the light contribute to the sense that the lighthouse is not merely a structure, but a living witness to the history of those lost to the ocean. Footsteps are frequently reported within the lighthouse, particularly along the spiral staircase. Visitors have described hearing the sound of boots or shoes pacing the steps, climbing or descending even when no one else is present. The footsteps can approach, retreat, or echo along multiple floors, creating the sensation of being accompanied by an invisible guide or observer. Some have claimed that the steps mimic their own movements, stopping when they stop and advancing when they move, suggesting a level of awareness or intent. Paranormal investigators note that these auditory phenomena often coincide with the presence of shadowy figures, flickering lights, or sudden temperature drops, creating multi-layered experiences that engage both the senses and the imagination. Physical sensations also play a role in the haunting of Block Island's Southeast Lighthouse. Visitors often report feeling brushes of cold air, sudden pressures on their back or shoulder, or the unmistakable sensation of being followed. These moments are brief but leave a lasting impression, heightening the sense of connection to the spirits of the lighthouse. Some describe a subtle tug or a guiding touch, as if the phantom keeper is leading them toward a particular area, or reminding them of the lighthouse's history and the lives tied to it. The historical context of the lighthouse illuminates why these phenomena persist. The Block Island Southeast Lighthouse has witnessed countless maritime disasters, storms that destroyed ships, and sailors who never returned home. Those who perished in these tragedies often left powerful emotional imprints, creating a concentrated hub of residual energy. Likewise, lighthouse keepers endured long hours, storms, and the responsibility of ensuring the safety of passing vessels, leaving behind traces of devotion, vigilance, and human fatigue. Paranormal experts suggest that locations with both high emotional intensity and repetitive human activities, especially those marked by tragedy or near-death experiences, are prone to retain spiritual echoes, explaining the frequency of hauntings reported at the lighthouse. Visitors often note that the lighthouse carries a presence distinct from ordinary historic structures. The combination of wind-whispered voices, shadowy figures, flickering lights, and phantom footsteps produces an immersive, multisensory experience. Photographers and paranormal enthusiasts attempt to document the activity, capturing fleeting shadows or subtle anomalies in the beam. Yet conclusive proof remains elusive. The uncertainty only amplifies the allure, making Block Island Southeast Lighthouse a site where history, danger, and the supernatural intersect. Block Island Southeast Lighthouse endures as a sentinel not only for sailors but for the spirits of those lost to the ocean. Its flickering beacon, whispered voices on the wind, shadowy figures, and phantom footsteps serve as reminders that the lighthouse is never truly empty. Visitors leave with an impression of having walked among echoes, of having sensed lives that continue beyond death. Many believe that a phantom keeper still tends the light after midnight, ensuring that the memories of sailors lost to storms are neither forgotten nor abandoned, eternally guiding those who traverse the cliffs and waters of Block Island. Rhode Island Lighthouse perched on its isolated island off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island, stands as both a historic beacon and a sentinel over a tragic maritime past. Built to guide ships safely through treacherous waters, the lighthouse has weathered centuries of storms, fog, and shipwrecks. Yet beyond its functional purpose, Rhode Island has gained a reputation for paranormal activity, attracting visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to explore its haunted legacy. The lighthouse's isolation, combined with its storied history of keepers lost to violent seas, has created an atmosphere where the natural world and the supernatural seem to intertwine, giving rise to countless reports of ghostly encounters, phantom lights, and disembodied voices. Visitors arriving at Rhode Island Lighthouse often describe an immediate shift in atmosphere. Even on calm days, the air carries a peculiar weight, heavy with salt, fog, and the echo of countless tragedies. The wooden floors of the lighthouse creak beneath footsteps, yet many guests report hearing additional creaks and taps that cannot be attributed to their own movements. These phantom footsteps are a common phenomenon, echoing along the spiral staircase and hallways as if the keepers who perished decades ago are still pacing the lighthouse, attending to duties long abandoned. The footsteps often move in patterns inconsistent with the visitors' paths, approaching and retreating with an almost deliberate rhythm, creating a palpable sense of being observed by unseen presences. Auditory phenomena are among the most reported experiences at Rhode Island. Visitors frequently hear disembodied voices drifting across the rocks or through the lighthouse itself. Some describe faint whispers that grow louder when approached, while others recount hearing cries of distress or faint commands, as though past keepers are trying to relay urgent instructions. Many guests report hearing their names called softly or hearing phrases like "watch the light" or "Dan T leave the lamp unattended," echoing the responsibilities that once defined the keepers' lives. These auditory encounters are often accompanied by an emotional response, a sudden chill or a sense of dread reinforcing the idea that the lighthouse preserves not only the memories but also the residual energy of those who served and died there. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Rhode Island haunting. Witnesses often report seeing shapes moving along the stairs, hallways, or even outside on the rocky cliffs. Some figures are described as tall, dark, and indistinct, dressed in period clothing that hints at the maritime attire of the keepers. Others appear briefly at the windows, gazing out toward the water before fading into the mist. One particularly haunting account describes a figure standing in the lantern room during a foggy night, silhouetted against the glow of the lighthouse beacon, watching the sea with a quiet vigilance that seems both protective and mournful. These apparitions often give the impression of unfinished business, as if the spirits remain tethered to the lighthouse by duty, tragedy, or both. The lighthouse beacon itself has been associated with supernatural activity. On foggy nights, visitors report seeing lights moving in unusual patterns, fluctuating, flickering, or sweeping across the cliffs in a way that seems intentional. Some interpret these movements as signals from the spirits, perhaps attempting to communicate or recreate the duties they once performed. Paranormal investigators have speculated that the beacon, as a focal point of energy and attention for centuries, may act as a conduit for spiritual manifestations, linking the living world with the memories of those lost at sea. The lighthouse's isolation amplifies these experiences, making the light appear almost alive, pulsing with an energy that reaches beyond the material world. Physical sensations are also reported by visitors. Many recount sudden chills, the brush of a cold hand along their arm, or the sense of a presence standing just behind them. Some describe feeling a weight on their shoulders or a gentle tug, as if an unseen keeper is guiding them through the lighthouse or warning them to be cautious. These experiences often coincide with auditory or visual phenomena, creating multi-sensory encounters that are difficult to dismiss. Guests frequently remark on the intensity of these sensations, noting that they feel far more immediate and personal than typical ghost stories might suggest. The history of Rhode Island Lighthouse provides context for these hauntings. The lighthouse has been witness to countless storms, shipwrecks, and maritime tragedies. Many keepers perished while tending the light during violent weather, their lives cut short in the service of guiding sailors to safety. These deaths, often sudden and traumatic, left a deep imprint on the island. Paranormal experts suggest that locations with high emotional intensity, particularly where life and death events occurred repeatedly, are more likely to retain spiritual energy. In the case of Rhode Island, the combination of isolation, responsibility, and the dangers of the sea appears to have created a concentrated hub of residual energy that manifests in auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena. Visitors often describe Rhode Island Lighthouse as different from other historic sites. Its beauty and isolation create a captivating but eerie atmosphere, where history and the supernatural coexist. Some guests deliberately explore the lighthouse during foggy nights, hoping to witness the shadowy figures, hear the cries on the rocks, or see the flickering lights. Photographers and paranormal investigators attempt to capture evidence of the phenomena. Though definitive proof remains rare, the uncertainty of these experiences only enhances the sense of mystery, making the lighthouse a place where imagination, history, and the supernatural converge. Rhode Island Lighthouse endures as a place of memory, tragedy, and lingering presence. Its phantom footsteps, disembodied voices, flickering lights, and shadowy figures serve as reminders that the lighthouse is not merely a historical monument but a living testament to those who perished while serving it. Visitors leave with the haunting impression that the keeper's spirits still tend the light, watching over the sea, and that the island is never truly empty. The presence of these spirits ensures that the history of sacrifice, vigilance, and loss remains etched into the very walls and cliffs of Rhode Island, continuing to captivate and unsettle all who visit. Prudence Island Lighthouse, perched on the rugged coastline of Prudence Island, Rhode Island, is both a historical landmark and a source of eerie fascination for visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Built to guide sailors safely through the often treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay, the lighthouse has stood for centuries as a sentinel against the dangers of the Atlantic. Yet beyond its practical purpose, Prudence Island Lighthouse has developed a reputation for supernatural occurrences, drawing attention from those intrigued by the unexplained. Cold drafts in enclosed areas, shadowy figures moving along the spiral staircases, and whispers that seem to drift across the water have all been reported, creating a haunting atmosphere where history and the supernatural converge. Visitors approaching the lighthouse often remark on an immediate shift in the environment. Even on calm days, the air carries a distinct chill, a dampness that seems heavier than the surrounding ocean breeze. Inside the lighthouse, enclosed spaces amplify the sensation of cold drafts, sometimes localized to corners or hallways, as if an unseen presence is moving through the structure. Many guests report sudden shivers or goosebumps when passing certain spots, particularly near the base of the spiral staircase or the lantern room at the top of the tower. Paranormal investigators have documented these temperature fluctuations, noting that they often correspond with other strange phenomena, such as visual apparitions or auditory disturbances. These cold drafts, subtle but undeniable, contribute to the lighthouse's reputation as a place where the physical and spiritual realms intersect. Shadowy figures are frequently reported within the lighthouse. Visitors describe seeing dark, indistinct forms moving along the stairs, lingering near the windows, or pausing at the landings before disappearing. Some figures appear human in shape, dressed in clothing reminiscent of past centuries, while others are more amorphous, their movements fluid and unnatural. Witnesses often sense a deliberate awareness in these apparitions, as if the figures are observing their movements or guiding them through the tower. One particularly compelling account involves a shadowy figure ascending the spiral staircase, just ahead of a visitor, vanishing before reaching the lantern room, leaving only a lingering chill and the faint impression of a presence that had shared the stairwell for a brief moment. Such encounters suggest that the spirits at Prudence Island Lighthouse may be tied to the lives of past keepers or sailors, lingering in spaces they once occupied, bound to the rhythms and responsibilities of the lighthouse. Auditory phenomena, add another layer to the lighthouse's haunted reputation. Guests often report hearing faint whispers, voices carried on the wind, or murmurs that seem to originate from within the walls themselves. Some describe hearing their names called softly, while others report fragments of conversations, warnings, or instructions, echoing the duties of lighthouse keepers long gone. These sounds are particularly pronounced during foggy evenings or stormy weather, when the sounds of the sea blend with the unnatural murmurs, creating an immersive and unsettling experience. The whispers often seem responsive, growing louder when visitors pause and fading as they move, suggesting a level of awareness or intent on the part of the unseen voices. The lighthouse beacon itself is often implicated in paranormal activity. Several visitors have observed the light flickering, pulsing, or dimming in ways that appear purposeful rather than mechanical. Some describe the beams sweeping across the water or the rocky cliffs below in unusual patterns, almost as if signaling to unseen presences rather than ships. Paranormal investigators speculate that the energy of the lighthouse, concentrated over centuries of storms, shipwrecks, and human labor, may influence the functioning of the beacon, allowing it to manifest a kind of sentience. This perception of the light as alive contributes to the feeling that Prudence Island Lighthouse is more than a structure, is a guardian, or perhaps a vessel, for spirits who continue to occupy the island. Phantom footsteps are another recurring phenomenon reported by visitors. Many hear the unmistakable sound of boots or shoes pacing the wooden floors or climbing the spiral staircase when no one else is present. These footsteps can move rhythmically or seemingly randomly, approaching, receding, and echoing with a resonance that seems tied to the architecture of the tower itself. Some visitors describe a sensation that the steps respond to their own movements, stopping when they pause and advancing as they walk, creating the unnerving impression of being accompanied by an invisible guide or observer. Paranormal experts note that these footsteps often coincide with visual sightings or cold drafts, creating a multisensory experience that is difficult to dismiss. Tactile sensations are also commonly reported. Guests have recounted feeling invisible touches on their shoulders, a gentle brush along their back, or the impression of being followed as they ascend the spiral staircase. These fleeting experiences are often accompanied by a sudden chill or the subtle sound of whispers, reinforcing the impression of active, lingering spirits. Visitors frequently comment on the intensity of these encounters, noting that the presence in the lighthouse feels immediate and personal, leaving a lasting impact long after they have departed. The history of Prudence Island Lighthouse helps explain the nature of these hauntings. Built in the 19th century to guide ships through dangerous waters, the lighthouse has witnessed countless storms, accidents, and maritime tragedies. Keepers lived in relative isolation, tasked with maintaining the light and ensuring the safety of passing vessels. Many endured long hours in harsh conditions, and some perished while performing their duties. Paranormal experts suggest that the lighthouse's isolation, combined with its history of intense human emotion, responsibility, and trauma, has created a concentrated reservoir of residual energy. The spirits lingering on the island may be echoes of keepers who died in service, sailors lost at sea, or a combination of both. Visitors often leave Prudence Island Lighthouse with the sensation of having shared the space with something unseen. Shadowy figures, cold drafts, whispered voices, and the flickering light all create a haunting yet captivating experience, reminding guests that the lighthouse is more than a historic landmark. It is a place where the past remains present, where the spirits of those who tended the light or perished in the waters continue to inhabit the space, ensuring that their vigilance, sacrifice, and memory endure. Block Island North Lighthouse, perched on the northern cliffs of Block Island, Rhode Island, has long served as a vital guide for mariners navigating the often treacherous Atlantic waters surrounding the island. Its sturdy structure and powerful beacon have helped countless ships avoid the jagged rocks below. Yet the lighthouse is more than a navigational aid. Over the decades, it has gained a reputation for supernatural activity, drawing visitors intrigued by stories of ghostly apparitions, unexplained sounds, and a lingering presence tied to those who perished at sea. The lighthouse's isolated location, coupled with its history of shipwrecks and maritime tragedy, has created a haunting atmosphere where the echoes of the drowned continue to resonate across land and water. Approaching the lighthouse, many visitors immediately sense a change in the environment. The wind off the Atlantic carries an eerie weight, a chill that seems to deepen near the cliffs and along the lighthouse pathways. Even on calm days, the air inside the structure feels cooler than the surrounding outdoors, often intensifying in enclosed spaces such as the tower staircase or the small rooms once occupied by lighthouse keepers. Witnesses frequently report sudden shivers or goosebumps, particularly near areas where tragic maritime events are known to have occurred. Paranormal investigators have documented these cold spots, noting that they often coincide with other phenomena such as visual apparitions or unexplained sounds, suggesting the presence of lingering energy connected to past tragedies. Auditory experiences are among the most commonly reported occurrences at Block Island North Lighthouse. Visitors describe hearing faint cries or calls carried across the cliffs, often sounding like the desperate pleas of drowned sailors struggling against the waves. Whispers sometimes drift along the staircases or across the lighthouse's rooms, echoing faint instructions, names, or fragmented sentences that seem tied to the lighthouse's past. Some witnesses have recounted hearing low murmurs that appear to follow them as they move, while others hear disembodied voices calling from the rocks below. The combination of wind waves and the haunting quality of these sounds creates an immersive experience, leaving guests with the unsettling impression that the lighthouse is not only a structure, but also a vessel for the voices of the lost. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the haunting at Block Island North Lighthouse. Guests frequently report seeing dark, indistinct forms moving along the rocky shoreline or appearing near the base of the tower. Some are described as human in shape, wearing the garb of sailors or keepers from centuries past, while others seem more ethereal, almost gliding above the ground. Many witnesses describe seeing figures climbing stairways that no longer exist, or pausing near the lighthouse windows before disappearing into the night. One particularly chilling account involves a figure standing silently in the lantern room, silhouetted against a rotating beacon, gazing out toward the ocean as if continuing the vigil they once performed in life. These apparitions often convey a sense of purpose or unfinished business, reinforcing the idea that the spirits are tethered to the lighthouse by tragedy and duty. The lighthouse beacon itself plays a central role in the reported hauntings. Several visitors have observed the light flickering or dimming even when the lighthouse is unmanned or during clear, calm nights. Some describe the beam sweeping across the cliffs or rocks in seemingly deliberate patterns, as if signaling to spirits or reenacting historical events rather than guiding ships. Paranormal investigators suggest that the energy concentrated at the lighthouse created by storms, shipwrecks, and the emotional intensity of keepers' lives may influence the light, producing effects that appear intentional. The perception of the beacon as alive adds to the lighthouse's mystique, creating a sense that it is a living witness to the tragedies of the sea. Phantom footsteps are another recurring phenomenon within the lighthouse. Visitors walking the spiral staircase often report the sound of boots or shoes pacing along the wooden steps when no one else is present. These footsteps may ascend or descend in patterns that seem responsive to the visitor's movements, approaching when they pause and retreating when they advance. Many describe the sound echoing unnaturally, filling the narrow tower and creating the impression that unseen keepers or sailors are moving alongside them. Paranormal investigators note that these footsteps often occur in tandem with other phenomena, such as shadowy figures, cold drafts, or flickering lights, creating a multisensory experience that is difficult to dismiss. Physical sensations are also commonly reported. Visitors recount feeling sudden brushes of cold air, a light touch on their shoulder, or a subtle pressure at their back as they navigate the lighthouse. These fleeting moments are often accompanied by auditory or visual phenomena, leaving a lingering sense of presence that persists even after the visitor has left the building. The intensity of these encounters often surprises those unfamiliar with the location, reinforcing the lighthouse's reputation as a place where the living and the dead intersect. The history of Block Island North Lighthouse provides insight into the nature of these hauntings. Constructed in the 19th century to protect sailors from the dangerous waters off the island, it has witnessed countless storms and maritime disasters. Shipwrecks claimed the lives of many who sought refuge near its beacon, while lighthouse keepers endured long hours in isolation, often facing perilous conditions to maintain the light. Paranormal experts suggest that the emotional energy concentrated in such a place, grief, fear, devotion, and tragedy, creates an environment where residual spiritual phenomena are more likely to manifest. The lighthouse stands as both a physical structure and a repository for the memories and spirits of those bound to its cliffs and waters. Visitors often leave Block Island North Lighthouse with a profound sense of awe and unease. The cries carried by the wind, the flickering beacon, the shadowy figures, and the phantom footsteps all combine to create a haunting, immersive experience. Many feel they have glimpsed the lingering presence of sailors lost to the sea, or that the spirits of past keepers continue their vigil, ensuring that the light remains a guide even beyond the bounds of the living. The lighthouse remains an enduring symbol, not only of maritime safety, but of the lives, tragedies, and mysteries that continue to inhabit the rugged cliffs of Block Island. Point Judith Lighthouse, standing on the rocky promontory of Narragansett, Rhode Island, has long served as a vital guide for sailors navigating the dangerous waters of Block Island Sound. Constructed to warn vessels of treacherous reefs and strong currents, the lighthouse has been a steadfast sentinel through storms, fog, and countless shipwrecks. Yet beyond its functional purpose, Point Judith has developed a reputation for ghostly activity, drawing visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts intrigued by its haunted legacy. Reports of shadowy figures near the lantern room, whispers echoing through stairwells, and phantom footsteps along the empty halls suggest that the lighthouse carries the lingering memory of maritime tragedy and the restless spirits of those who perished at sea. Visitors approaching Point Judith Lighthouse often notice an immediate change in the atmosphere. The ocean wind, which is already sharp and bracing, can feel heavier here, carrying an inexplicable chill that seems to seep into the bones. On calm days, the air feels unusually still inside the lighthouse, while enclosed spaces such as the spiral staircase and the lantern room amplify the sensation of unseen presence. Many guests report sudden shivers or goosebumps, particularly near areas with the clearest views of the ocean, as if the lighthouse itself is responding to the tragedies it has witnessed over the years. Paranormal investigators have documented these temperature anomalies, noting that they often coincide with visual or auditory phenomena, further reinforcing the impression that the lighthouse is more than a static structure. It is a repository of lingering energy. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Point Judith. Visitors often hear soft whispers drifting through the stairwells or the lighthouse's small rooms, sometimes seeming to emerge from the walls themselves. These murmurs are described as unintelligible at first, but occasionally form words or phrases, such as names, warnings, or instructions reminiscent of the keeper's duties. Some guests report hearing distant cries or calls carried across the rocks, echoing as if from sailors lost to the surf below. Others describe footsteps ascending or descending the spiral staircase when no one else is present. The sounds strikingly precise, as if a spectral keeper or sailor is retracing a path they once walked in life. These auditory encounters often leave visitors with a deep sense of unease, as though the lighthouse is aware of their presence and actively acknowledging them. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Point Judith haunting. Guests frequently describe seeing indistinct forms near the lantern room or along the stairwell landings. Some figures appear human in shape, dressed in maritime attire or the clothing of past lighthouse keepers. Others seem more ethereal, fading in and out of visibility or drifting silently through walls and doors. One striking account involves a tall figure standing at the lantern room's edge, gazing out toward the ocean, as if surveying the waters for ships in danger. Witnesses often report a sense of sorrow radiating from these apparitions, reinforcing the idea that the lighthouse mourns the vessels and crews lost to the turbulent waters below. The lighthouse beacon itself is sometimes implicated in paranormal activity. Some visitors have observed it flickering, pulsing, or dimming inexplicably, even on clear nights or when the light is unmanned. Paranormal investigators speculate that these fluctuations may represent the concentrated energy of past tragedies interacting with the mechanical components of the beacon. Others interpret the flickering as the lighthouse's way of signaling or communicating with unseen entities, or perhaps as a manifestation of the spirits of sailors who perished at sea. The notion of the beacon as alive, responding to the lingering presence of the lost, adds a layer of poignancy and unease to the lighthouse experience. Physical sensations are frequently reported by those exploring the lighthouse. Many describe sudden brushes of cold air, a light touch on the shoulder, or the impression of being closely followed along the narrow, spiral staircase. Some visitors feel an intangible weight, as if the building itself is pressing down on them or guiding them through its corridors. These experiences are often accompanied by auditory or visual phenomena, reinforcing the sense that Point Judith Lighthouse is inhabited by more than memories. It is a place where the past continues to actively intersect with the present. The history of Point Judith Lighthouse provides context for these ghostly occurrences. Since its establishment in the 19th century, the lighthouse has witnessed numerous shipwrecks, storms, and maritime accidents. Sailors and passengers were often lost to the surf just below the cliffs, while lighthouse keepers faced relentless winds, isolation, and the constant responsibility of maintaining the beacon. These intense, repeated experiences of danger, grief, and duty left an indelible mark on the site. Paranormal experts suggest that such locations, where life and death situations repeatedly occurred, are particularly likely to retain spiritual energy, making the lighthouse a natural focal point for ghostly manifestations. Visitors often describe the atmosphere at Point Judith as simultaneously beautiful and unsettling. The rugged cliffs, roaring waves, and sweeping views of the Atlantic create a sense of awe, yet the reported haunting shadowy figures, whispers, phantom footsteps, and flickering lights imbue the location with a quiet sorrow and tension. Many who explore the lighthouse at dusk or during foggy evenings report feeling a connection to the past, as though the spirits of sailors and keepers continue their watch, mourning those lost to the sea while tending the light that once guided them. Point Judith Lighthouse remains a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. Its echoes of footsteps, disembodied voices, shadowy figures, and the flickering beacon all serve as reminders that the lighthouse is never truly empty. Visitors leave with the haunting impression that the lighthouse remembers every ship lost in the surf below, and that the spirits of keepers and sailors continue to inhabit its halls. In this way, Point Judith Lighthouse stands as both a beacon for the living and a resting place for those who never returned from the waters it guards, a timeless sentinel of memory, loss, and lingering presence. Castle Hill Lighthouse, perched on the rocky promontory of Newport, Rhode Island, has guided sailors through the perilous waters of Narragansett Bay for over a century. Its steadfast beacon has been a symbol of safety and vigilance, warning ships of the jagged rocks and strong currents that surround the coast. Yet alongside its role as a maritime guardian, Castle Hill Lighthouse has developed a reputation for mysterious and unexplained occurrences. Visitors report eerie phenomena, including phantom figures ascending the spiral staircase, distant laughter echoing through the tower, sudden cold spots that chill the skin, and a light that seems to move with a life of its own, swinging or flickering as if signaling unseen ships. The lighthouse, with its isolation and long history, has become a magnet for those drawn to the spectral and the uncanny. Approaching the lighthouse, guests often sense an immediate change in the environment. The wind off the Atlantic carries a peculiar weight, sharp and biting, and the sound of waves crashing against the rocky cliffs below can seem amplified, resonating within the lighthouse itself. Even on warm days, enclosed spaces inside the tower feel unusually cold, with sudden pockets of chill that appear without warning. Many visitors report a sudden shiver or goosebumps when walking past a spiral staircase or near the lantern room, as if the building itself reacts to their presence. Paranormal investigators have noted that these cold spots often coincide with other phenomena such as the appearance of shadowy figures or unusual movements of the light, reinforcing the sense that the lighthouse is more than a static structure. It's a place where energy, memory, and the unexplained converge. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported experiences at Castle Hill Lighthouse. Guests describe seeing indistinct forms climbing the spiral staircase, pausing at landings, or standing near the lantern room, silhouetted against the ocean horizon. Some figures appear human, dressed in the garb of past lighthouse keepers, while others are more ethereal, their forms shifting and flickering as they move. Witnesses often report that these apparitions seem purposeful, moving with intention rather than wandering aimlessly. One account tells of a figure ascending the stairs ahead of a visitor, vanishing before reaching the top, leaving only a sudden chill and the lingering sensation of being watched. Many believe these shadowy presences are the spirits of keepers who once devoted their lives to tending the light, their dedication persisting even after death. Auditory phenomena are another hallmark of the Castle Hill haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing distant laughter echoing through the tower, sometimes light and playful, other times carrying an unsettling undertone. Whispered voices are also common, drifting along hallways or up the spiral staircase, occasionally forming words that seem related to the lighthouse's duties, such as instructions or names. The sounds are often more pronounced during foggy evenings or stormy nights, when the roar of the sea blends with these spectral murmurs, creating a multi-layered auditory experience. Some guests have reported hearing footsteps pacing the stairs when the tower is empty, the sound precise and deliberate, as if echoing the careful routines of keepers long gone. The lighthouse beacon itself plays a central role in the reported haunting. Visitors sometimes observe the light swinging or flickering unpredictably, even when the lighthouse is unmanned. The movement of the beam across the cliffs and ocean can appear deliberate, almost as if signaling to unseen ships rather than guiding the living. Paranormal investigators speculate that the concentrated energy of storms, shipwrecks, and human labor over more than a century may influence the light, giving it a lifelike quality. Others interpret the light as an extension of the spirits that inhabit the lighthouse, a tool through which they maintain vigilance over the waters they once watched in life. This phenomenon, combined with auditory and visual disturbances, contributes to the lighthouse's reputation as a place where the past continues to inhabit the present. Physical sensations are also frequently reported. Guests recount sudden brushes of cold air, the feeling of invisible hands on their shoulders, or subtle pressures along their back as they ascend the stairs. These fleeting touches are often accompanied by a chill or a whisper, reinforcing the impression of an active, lingering presence. Many visitors describe the intensity of these experiences as deeply personal, leaving a lasting emotional impact that extends well beyond the visit. The history of Castle Hill Lighthouse helps explain why these hauntings persist. Since its construction, the lighthouse has witnessed countless storms, shipwrecks, and tragedies at sea. Lighthouse keepers lived in relative isolation, often braving extreme weather to maintain the beacon and ensure the safety of passing vessels. Some keepers perish during storms or succumb to accidents while performing their duties, leaving a lasting imprint on the lighthouse. Paranormal experts suggest that locations marked by high emotional intensity and repeated life and death events are more likely to retain spiritual energy, making Castle Hill Lighthouse a natural site for residual hauntings. Visitors often note that the lighthouse carries a presence distinct from other historic sites. The combination of shadowy figures, distant laughter, whispered voices, flickering lights, and cold spots creates an immersive, multi-sensory experience. Guests frequently leave with the impression that the lighthouse is aware of them, observing their movements and responding in subtle ways. Many feel a connection to the past, sensing the dedication and vigilance of the keepers who maintained the beacon, as well as the tragedies of sailors who relied upon it. Castle Hill Lighthouse endures as both a historic landmark and a place of lingering presence. Its phantom figures, whispered voices, sudden cold spots, and the swinging beacon all serve as reminders that the lighthouse is never truly empty. Visitors depart with the haunting sense that the spirits of keepers still climb the stairs, tend the light, and watch over the Atlantic, ensuring that the history, vigilance, and tragedies of the past continue to resonate along the cliffs of Newport. In this way, Castle Hill Lighthouse stands as both a guardian of sailors and a testament to the lives, memories, and spirits bound to its stones and light. Sakonnet Lighthouse, situated off the coast of Warwick, Rhode Island, has long served as a guiding light for ships navigating the often treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay. Its sturdy structure and unwavering beacon have warned sailors of shallow shoals, shifting sandbars, and hidden rocks for over a century. Yet beyond its practical role, Sakonnet Lighthouse has garnered a reputation for paranormal activity, drawing visitors intrigued by its haunted history. Tales of phantom footsteps echoing through the tower, whispers of names long forgotten, and lights that flicker without explanation have circulated for decades. Many who explore the lighthouse describe the sensation of being watched or followed, particularly when fog rolls across the bay, shrouding the structure in an ethereal haze. Visitors approaching Sakonnet Lighthouse often notice a shift in the atmosphere even before setting foot on the pier. The ocean wind carries a chill sharper than expected, and the fog can seem unnaturally dense, curling around the base of the tower as if drawn to it. Inside, enclosed spaces amplify this sense of otherworldliness. Guests report sudden drops in temperature near the spiral staircase or in small chambers once used by the keeper, with the cold feeling almost tangible, as if a presence stands nearby. Many describe goosebumps, shivers, or a pressing weight in these areas, sensations that seem to respond to their movements. Paranormal investigators note that these cold spots often coincide with other phenomena, such as lights turning on or off without power, whispering voices, or shadowy figures appearing in peripheral vision, reinforcing the lighthouse's haunted reputation. Phantom footsteps are among the most frequently reported experiences at Sakonnet Lighthouse. Visitors climbing the spiral staircase often hear distinct steps echoing behind or ahead of them, though no one else is present. The rhythm of these footsteps can vary, sometimes deliberate and measured, other times hasty or uneven, giving the impression of a restless figure moving through the tower. Some guests report the footsteps following them from room to room, only to vanish abruptly, leaving an unsettling silence. Paranormal experts suggest that such auditory phenomena are indicative of residual energy, likely tied to the lighthouse's original keeper, who spent countless hours tending the beacon and patrolling the tower's interior in isolation. Auditory encounters extend beyond footsteps. Many visitors recount whispers that drift along the stairwell or across the lighthouse rooms, often carrying names or fragments of conversation. These murmurs are described as soft but distinct, sometimes forming complete phrases or sentences that feel tied to the life of the lighthouse keeper. Some guests report hearing their own names called faintly, while others hear instructions or reminders echoing through the narrow corridors. The whispers often intensify during foggy or stormy weather, when the natural sounds of the ocean blend with the spectral voices, creating an immersive and sometimes unsettling experience. Visual phenomena are also reported at Sakonnet Lighthouse. Shadowy figures occasionally appear in the peripheral vision of visitors, often near the base of the spiral staircase or in small chambers once used for the keeper's duties. These figures are typically dark and indistinct, sometimes appearing as human silhouettes, and at other times more amorphous, fading in and out of view. One particularly striking account describes a shadowy figure standing near the lantern room, silhouetted against the faint glow of the light, as if watching the waters it once guarded. Witnesses often describe a sense of purpose in these apparitions, reinforcing the belief that the spirits are bound to the lighthouse by duty and history rather than wandering aimlessly. The lighthouse's beacon itself is implicated in many paranormal experiences. Guests report lights turning on or off without any electrical cause, or the lantern dimming and brightening erratically. Some interpret this as the keeper's presence still tending the light, performing duties long after death. Others believe the flickering serves as a warning to unseen entities, or a residual echo of the countless nights the keeper spent maintaining the beam. In either case, the unusual behavior of the lighthouse's light contributes to the sense that Sakonnet is more than a structure. It is a living memory of the people who once inhabited it. Physical sensations are another element of the haunting. Visitors often describe the feeling of being closely followed as they walk the pier or ascend the spiral staircase. A sudden brush of air, the impression of a hand on the shoulder, or a weight pressing subtly against their back can accompany visual or auditory phenomena. These experiences are fleeting yet intense, leaving a lasting impression on those who encounter them. Many report that the sensations feel personal, almost as if the lighthouse's original keeper is actively aware of their presence, guiding or observing their movements. The history of Sakonnet Lighthouse provides context for these experiences. Established in the 19th century, it was manned by dedicated keepers who maintained the light through harsh storms, freezing winters, and isolated conditions. The keeper's life was one of constant vigilance, and many spent decades living in solitude, ensuring that the light guided vessels safely through dangerous waters. Some keepers died in service or endured tragedies at sea, leaving an imprint of grief, duty, and resilience within the structure. Paranormal experts suggest that such locations, where repeated emotional intensity and life-and-death situations occurred, are particularly likely to retain spiritual energy, making the lighthouse a natural site for hauntings. Visitors often leave Sakonnet Lighthouse with a sense of having shared the space with something unseen. Phantom footsteps, whispering voices, shadowy figures, sudden cold spots, and inexplicable light activity combine to create a deeply immersive experience. Many feel a connection to the lighthouse's past, as if the original keeper continues to watch over the bay, tending the beacon and ensuring that the waters remain safe. Sakonnet stands as both a historic landmark and a place of lingering presence, where history, duty, and the supernatural converge, leaving an indelible impression on all who explore its haunted halls. Rhode Island Coast Guard Station, located off the rugged shores of Newport, Rhode Island, stands as a silent sentinel over the waters of Narragansett Bay. Once a bustling outpost for maritime rescue and navigation, the station has long been abandoned. Yet its presence remains strong, not only in history, but in legend. Visitors who venture to the island often speak of unnerving experiences, cries echoing across the night, shadowy figures moving along the docks, cold spots near the lantern room, and even the sensation of invisible officers issuing commands. The station's isolation, combined with its history of maritime rescue and tragedy, has made it a magnet for those intrigued by the paranormal and the echoes of the past. Approaching Rhode Island by boat, the first impression is one of desolate beauty. The station, framed against a vast expanse of the bay, seems to hover between two worlds. Its whitewashed walls, battered by wind and salt, yet imbued with a sense of lingering vigilance. Even before stepping ashore, visitors often notice a shift in the atmosphere. The wind off the water carries a chill that cuts deeper than the ambient temperature, and fog frequently wraps the island in a ghostly haze, muting sounds and lending an ethereal quality to the scene. Many recount feeling a sudden heaviness or the sensation of being watched as they make their way along the pier, as though the station itself is aware of their presence. Inside the station, cold spots are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Areas near the lantern room, the upper stairwells, and the storage rooms often feel inexplicably frigid, even on warm summer days. Visitors describe shivers that appear abruptly, goosebumps rising on their skin, and the sensation of a presence nearby that cannot be seen. Paranormal investigators have noted that these cold patches often coincide with other manifestations, such as auditory phenomena or shadowy figures, creating a multisensory haunting experience. These sudden drops in temperature seem to respond to human activity, adding to the impression that the spirits inhabiting the station are aware of the living who venture into their domain. Auditory encounters are frequent and deeply unsettling. Many visitors report hearing cries and screams echoing across the station, sometimes emanating from the docks or the lantern room. The sounds are often described as desperate or fearful, reminiscent of sailors in peril or personnel calling for assistance during a storm. In addition to cries, some have reported hearing indistinct commands shouted as though by invisible officers' directives that would have been familiar to those working in the Coast Guard, such as orders to abandon ship, take stations, or prepare rescue equipment. Whispered conversations sometimes drift along the hallways or the upper floors, carrying names or fragments of phrases that suggest the echoes of daily life long past. These auditory experiences are often amplified during stormy or foggy nights, when the natural sounds of the ocean blend seamlessly with the spectral activity, creating an immersive and eerie atmosphere. Shadowy figures are another common feature of Rhode Island's haunting. Guests frequently describe seeing dark shapes moving along the dock or through the upper levels of the station. Some figures appear human in form, dressed in the uniform or clothing reminiscent of early Coast Guard personnel, while others are more amorphous, fading in and out of view. Witnesses often report a deliberate presence in these apparitions, as if they are patrolling, inspecting, or performing duties they carried out in life. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowy officer pacing near the lantern room, stopping periodically as if scanning the waters, before disappearing into the darkness. These figures leave an impression of vigilance and dedication, as though the station's original keepers continue their watch even after death. The station's lantern room itself is often implicated in supernatural activity. Visitors have reported sudden flickering of the light, even when it has long been decommissioned, and occasional glows that appear without any electrical source. Some interpret these manifestations as the lingering energy of those who once tended the light, maintaining its function despite the absence of the living. Others believe the phenomena may serve as warnings or signals to spirits lost at sea, echoing the station's original purpose of safeguarding sailors and vessels. In either case, the activity reinforces the sense that Rhode Island Coast Guard Station remains a place of active presence rather than abandoned history. Physical sensations are frequently described alongside visual and auditory phenomena. Guests recount sudden brushes against their back, the feeling of invisible footsteps following them, or an unexplainable pressure in empty rooms. These experiences often accompany shadowy sightings or cries, creating an overwhelming sense of connection to the spirits lingering on the island. Many describe the intensity of the encounters as deeply personal, leaving a lasting impression that persists well beyond their visit. The history of Rhode Island Coast Guard Station helps illuminate the nature of these hauntings. Established in the early 20th century to aid navigation and conduct rescue operations, the station witnessed countless maritime emergencies, storms, and tragedies. Coast Guard personnel lived and worked in relative isolation, maintaining the lantern and patrolling the waters in often perilous conditions. Over the decades, numerous sailors and officers lost their lives near the island, leaving a concentrated residue of grief, fear, and devotion embedded within the structure. Paranormal experts suggest that locations where repeated emotional intensity and life-or-death circumstances occurred are particularly prone to spiritual phenomena, making Rhode Island a natural focus for lingering spirits. Visitors often leave Rhode Island Coast Guard Station with a profound sense of having shared the space with those who have passed before. Phantom footsteps, whispered commands, shadowy figures, cold spots, and the flickering lantern create a multi-layered haunting experience, offering a glimpse into the lives and duties of the men who once staffed the station. Many feel a connection to the history and the ghosts that remain, sensing that the island continues to fulfill its purpose, not only as a maritime sentinel but as a resting place for the spirits who dedicated their lives to protecting the waters of Narragansett Bay. Rhode Island Coast Guard Station remains a testament to the convergence of history, duty, and the supernatural. Its echoes of footsteps, cries, shadowy figures, and flickering light serve as enduring reminders that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of officers and sailors continue to inhabit its docks and lantern room, maintaining a vigil that spans life and death, ensuring that both the living and the lost are forever connected to this haunted outpost on Newport's rugged coast. Point Gammon Lighthouse, perched on the rocky coast of Narragansett, Rhode Island, has guided sailors safely through treacherous waters for over a century. Its powerful beacon warns of hidden reefs and strong currents, serving as a steadfast protector against the perils of the Atlantic. Yet alongside its functional role, Point Gammon has developed a reputation for paranormal activity, attracting visitors intrigued by its eerie stories. Reports of whispers drifting across the water, footsteps echoing through empty rooms, and flickering lights that pulse like a heartbeat suggest that the lighthouse is more than a mere navigational aid. Many believe the spirits of sailors lost to the ocean linger along the rocky shoreline, bound by tragedy and the restless pull of the sea. Visitors approaching the lighthouse often notice an immediate shift in the atmosphere. The wind off the Atlantic carries a chill sharper than expected, and the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks seems amplified, resonating within the tower itself. Fog often rolls in from the water, blanketing the lighthouse in an ethereal glow, muting sound, and adding a sense of isolation. Even on warm days, enclosed spaces inside the lighthouse feel unnaturally cold, and sudden drafts can sweep through hallways, stairwells, and the lantern room, leaving guests with goosebumps and a lingering sense of unease. Paranormal investigators have documented these temperature anomalies, noting that they frequently occur alongside visual and auditory phenomena, suggesting that the lighthouse is a conduit for energy left behind by past tragedies. Auditory phenomena are among the most commonly reported experiences at Point Gammon. Visitors describe faint whispers drifting across the water, carried by the wind, often unintelligible yet distinctly human. Some hear names or fragmented phrases, as if calling out to loved ones or issuing long-forgotten instructions. Inside the tower, footsteps echo along the spiral staircase or the wooden floors of the observation rooms. Even when the lighthouse is completely empty, these sounds vary in rhythm, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried or uneven, giving the impression of restless figures moving about, performing tasks or retracing paths from life. Many visitors report that the footsteps seem aware of their presence, pausing when they stop and resuming when they move, reinforcing the sensation of being watched by unseen observers. Visual experiences are also widely reported. Shadowy figures are sometimes glimpsed through stairwell windows or along the rocky shoreline surrounding the lighthouse. These forms are typically dark and indistinct, occasionally taking on the appearance of sailors in period attire or lighthouse keepers who once maintained the beacon. One account describes a figure standing silently in the lantern room, silhouetted against the faint glow of the light, gazing toward the ocean as if scanning the horizon for ships in danger. Witnesses often describe a sense of intent behind these apparitions, suggesting that they are bound by purpose, fulfilling duties carried over from life. Some believe these spirits linger not only to guard the lighthouse, but also to mourn the sailors who perished in the surrounding waters. The lighthouse beacon itself plays a central role in the reported hauntings. Guests frequently observe the light flickering or dimming without explanation, sometimes pulsing rhythmically, reminiscent of a heartbeat. Paranormal researchers suggest that this phenomenon may result from concentrated residual energy within the tower, possibly influenced by the emotional intensity of lives lost or dangers faced at sea. Others interpret the flickering as an active presence, with the light acting as a bridge between the living and the dead, or a signal to spirits wandering the rocks below. The effect is both mesmerizing and unsettling, creating a tangible connection to the lighthouse's history and its spectral inhabitants. Physical sensations are another element of the haunting. Visitors often report feeling sudden brushes of cold air, the sensation of unseen hands grazing their shoulders, or a subtle weight pressing against their backs. These experiences are typically fleeting but intense, leaving a lasting impression. Many describe the feeling as being followed, accompanied by whispers, footsteps, or flickering lights, heightening the sense that the lighthouse is alive with unseen activity. The history of Point Gammon Lighthouse provides insight into these hauntings. Constructed in the 19th century, the lighthouse has overseen countless shipwrecks and storms, with sailors losing their lives to the unforgiving waters below. Lighthouse keepers endured long hours of isolation, often facing harsh weather conditions while maintaining the light that protected passing vessels. The repeated emotional intensity, fear, and tragedy associated with both the keepers' and sailors' lives likely left a residual imprint on the site. Paranormal experts note that locations marked by repeated life-and-death experiences and prolonged human presence are particularly susceptible to lingering spiritual energy, making Point Gammon a hotspot for unexplained phenomena. Visitors frequently leave Point Gammon Lighthouse with a deep sense of awe and unease. The combination of whispered voices, shadowy figures, flickering lights, and phantom footsteps creates a fully immersive haunting experience. Many report feeling a connection to the past, sensing the presence of lost sailors or the dedication of keepers who once tended the beacon. The lighthouse seems to embody both protection and mourning, a place where the living are reminded of the perils of the sea, and the dead linger to ensure the legacy of vigilance endures. Point Gammon Lighthouse remains a powerful symbol of maritime history and spectral presence. Its echoes of footsteps, whispered names, shadowy figures, and the rhythmic heartbeat of the light serve as constant reminders that the past never truly leaves. The spirits of sailors and keepers continue to inhabit the lighthouse and its surrounding rocks, maintaining a vigilant watch over the waters they once navigated. In this way, Point Gammon stands not only as a historic structure, but also as a place where memory, tragedy, and the supernatural converge, offering visitors an unforgettable encounter with the unseen forces that linger along Narragansett's rugged coast. Brenton Reef Lighthouse, rising from the rocky waters off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island, has guided mariners through treacherous seas for over a century. Its bright beacon has warned countless vessels of hidden reefs and strong currents, ensuring safe passage through one of the most perilous stretches of the Atlantic. Despite its vital role in maritime safety, the lighthouse has earned a reputation for being haunted. Visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts report seeing shadowy figures in the lantern room, hearing whispers that grow louder as darkness falls, and encountering unexplained fog that rolls across the deck, seemingly with a life of its own. Many believe that the lighthouse preserves the memories of those who perished at sea nearby, capturing their presence within its walls and surrounding waters. Approaching Brenton Reef Lighthouse, guests often feel an immediate shift in atmosphere. The wind off the Atlantic carries a biting chill, and the constant crash of waves against jagged rocks resonates through the structure, creating an eerie, almost otherworldly ambience. Fog is a frequent visitor, enveloping the lighthouse in a ghostly shroud that softens the sounds of the sea and amplifies the sense of isolation. Even on calm, clear days, the interior of the lighthouse can feel unusually cold, with sudden gusts sweeping through stairwells, the observation room, and the lantern chamber. Many visitors describe the sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes track every movement. Paranormal investigators have noted that these drops in temperature often coincide with auditory and visual phenomena, reinforcing the idea that Brenton Reef Lighthouse is alive with residual energy. Auditory experiences are among the most common and unsettling phenomena reported at Brenton Reef. Guests often hear footsteps echoing through the spiral staircase or along the wooden floors, even when the lighthouse is empty. The steps can be deliberate and measured, or hurried and uneven, creating the impression of restless figures moving with purpose. Whispered voices are another frequent occurrence, drifting through corridors or near the lantern room. Sometimes these whispers carry fragments of names, faint commands, or the sounds of conversation from long ago. Other times, they resemble cries or distant shouts, echoing the desperation of sailors who were lost to the dangerous waters surrounding the lighthouse. The sounds intensify during foggy nights or storms, when the natural noises of the ocean fade and the lighthouse seems to come alive with the voices of the past. Visual phenomena add another layer of unease. Shadowy figures have been observed in the lantern room, silhouetted against the dim light or the darkness beyond the windows. Some figures resemble keepers in period attire, moving as though performing duties long left behind. Others appear more diffuse, fading in and out of sight, leaving only a lingering impression of presence. One visitor described a shadowed figure pacing along the spiral staircase, pausing at each landing before disappearing near the top. Visitors often note that these apparitions seem purposeful, as though the spirits are bound to the lighthouse by duty or unfinished business rather than wandering aimlessly. The lighthouse deck and surrounding areas are also sites of unusual phenomena. Fog often rolls across the deck unexpectedly, even on clear nights, swirling in patterns that seem almost deliberate. Figures have been reported moving within this fog, gliding silently across the wooden planks before vanishing into the night. The combination of mist, shadows, and the distant roar of the ocean creates a haunting, immersive environment. Many interpret these manifestations as the lingering presence of sailors lost nearby, unable to leave the site where their lives ended, or of lighthouse keepers continuing their eternal watch. Physical sensations accompany these auditory and visual experiences. Guests frequently report sudden brushes of cold air, the sensation of unseen hands touching their shoulders, or the feeling of being followed while exploring staircases or standing near the lantern room. These encounters, though brief, are often intense, leaving a lasting emotional impression. Visitors describe a sense of conscious awareness in the presence, as if the spirits are interacting directly rather than appearing randomly. The history of Brenton Reef Lighthouse provides context for the hauntings. Constructed in the 19th century, it guided vessels through dangerous waters while its keepers endured storms, isolation, and long nights tending the light. Many sailors perished near the surrounding reefs despite the lighthouse's warning, and some keepers themselves met untimely deaths performing their duties. The combination of tragedy, prolonged human presence, and exposure to life and death situations has likely left a residual imprint on the lighthouse, creating an environment ripe for lingering spiritual energy. Paranormal experts note that locations marked by repeated exposure to danger and human emotion often retain traces of the past, making Brenton Reef a natural hotspot for ghostly activity. Visitors often leave Brenton Reef Lighthouse with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, unexplained fog, and sudden cold spots combine to create an immersive, multi-sensory haunting. Many report feeling the presence of keepers and lost sailors, sensing their continued vigilance and attention. The lighthouse endures not only as a historical landmark, but also as a place where the memories and spirits of the past are preserved. Their stories written in the creaking floors, fog-laden decks, and the flickering lantern light. Brenton Reef Lighthouse continues to stand as both a beacon of safety and a repository of lingering spirits. Its shadows, whispers, fog, and spectral figures serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone. The memories of sailors and keepers remain alive in the structure, ensuring that the lighthouse is not only a guide for mariners, but also a home for those bound to its light. Its rocks and its waters forever intertwined with the ocean it watches over. Sakonnet Lighthouse, standing steadfast on the rocky shores of Little Compton, Rhode Island, has guided mariners through the unpredictable waters of Sakonnet Harbor for over a century. Its powerful beacon warns of treacherous shoals and jagged rocks, ensuring that vessels avoid disaster along this historically perilous stretch of coastline. Yet, alongside its essential role in navigation, Sakonnet Lighthouse has gained a reputation for paranormal activity. Visitors report ghostly sightings in the windows, footsteps echoing along the stairwell, and lights that flicker unpredictably, as if signaling not to passing ships, but to unseen presences. Many believe that the spirits of the lighthouse keepers linger here, eternally patrolling the light and maintaining their duties long after death. Approaching the lighthouse, guests often sense a sudden shift in atmosphere. The wind carries a chill that seems sharper than the weather warrants, and the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks below resonates throughout the structure. Fog frequently rolls in from the harbor, shrouding the lighthouse in a ghostly veil and muting distant sounds, creating an air of isolation and quiet anticipation. Even on calm days, enclosed spaces inside the lighthouse can feel unnaturally cold, with sudden gusts of icy air sweeping the stairwell, observation rooms, and lantern room. Many visitors report shivers and goosebumps that seem to respond to movement or proximity, suggesting that the lighthouse itself is aware of intrusions into its domain. Paranormal investigators have noted that these cold spots often coincide with visual and auditory phenomena, reinforcing the sense of Sakonnet as a place where past and present converge. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported encounters at Sakonnet Lighthouse. Guests commonly describe hearing footsteps echoing through the spiral staircase or along the wooden floors, despite the lighthouse being empty. The pace of these steps varies, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried or uneven, creating the impression of restless figures moving about the tower. Whispered voices are also reported, often drifting along hallways or near the lantern room. Some visitors claim to hear fragments of conversation, the calling of names, or faint instructions that might have been issued to sailors or staff by the original keepers. These sounds tend to be more pronounced during the night or in foggy weather, when natural ambient noise recedes and the subtle echoes of the lighthouse's history become more apparent. Visual phenomena at Sakonnet Lighthouse are similarly striking. Witnesses often report seeing shadowy figures in the windows, silhouetted against the dim light of the lantern or the fading twilight. These forms are usually human in appearance, sometimes resembling the attire of early keepers or sailors, while other times appearing more ethereal, fading in and out as if caught between worlds. One particularly vivid account describes a figure ascending the spiral staircase, pausing at each landing as if performing a routine, before disappearing abruptly near the top. Visitors frequently note a sense of intent in these apparitions, suggesting that the spirits are bound to the lighthouse, not by chance, but by duty and memory. Many interpret these sightings as the lingering presence of keepers who continue to fulfill their responsibilities, ensuring the beacon remains vigilant even in their absence. The lighthouse's lantern room often serves as the focal point of the haunting. Guests report lights flickering or dimming without electrical explanation, sometimes pulsing in a rhythm reminiscent of a heartbeat. Some believe that these fluctuations are tied to the presence of spirits who maintain the light, ensuring it continues to warn vessels of danger. Others interpret the flickering as a residual echo of storms, shipwrecks, and the countless hours the keepers spent tending the beacon. Regardless of interpretation, the phenomenon contributes to the perception of the lighthouse as a living entity, one imbued with memory, vigilance, and spiritual energy. Physical sensations are frequently described alongside visual and auditory experiences. Visitors often report feeling a sudden brush of cold air, a subtle pressure against their shoulders or back, or the impression that they are being closely followed while exploring the spiral staircase or standing near the lantern room. These encounters, while fleeting, can be intense and emotionally affecting, leaving a lasting sense of presence. Many visitors describe the experience as personal, as if the spirits are interacting with them directly, rather than simply manifesting randomly. The history of Sakonnet Lighthouse provides context for its enduring hauntings. Constructed in the 19th century, it was manned by keepers who lived in isolation while maintaining the light through storms, heavy fog, and extreme coastal conditions. These keepers devoted long hours to their duties, often under the threat of shipwrecks and loss of life. The intensity of this work, combined with the emotional weight of guiding sailors safely through danger, has likely left a residual imprint on the site. Paranormal experts suggest that places with repeated exposure to life-and-death events and prolonged human presence are especially prone to spiritual energy, making Sakonnet Lighthouse a hotspot for unexplained phenomena. Visitors often leave the lighthouse with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, flickering lights, and cold spots combine to create an immersive, haunting experience. Many report feeling the presence of the keepers who once tended the light, sensing their continued vigilance and dedication. The lighthouse seems to embody both a functional warning for sailors and a memorial to the lives of those who served and perished near its walls. Sakonnet Lighthouse endures as both a historical landmark and a place of lingering presence. Its echoes of footsteps, shadowy figures, whispered names, and flickering lantern remind visitors that the past is never fully gone. The spirits of keepers continue to patrol the tower, their watch unbroken, ensuring that the history, duty, and memory of those who lived and worked here are preserved in every creaking stair, gust of wind, and flicker of light. Visitors leave with the unmistakable sense that Sakonnet Lighthouse is alive not just with history, but with the vigilant spirits who remain bound to its walls and its beacon. Sabin Point Lighthouse, rising from the rocky shoreline of Newport, Rhode Island, has guided countless sailors safely through treacherous waters for over a century. Its bright beacon warns of hidden shoals, jagged rocks, and shifting currents that have claimed the lives of many over the years. Yet beyond its essential maritime role, Sabin Point has earned a reputation as a haunted site, drawing visitors, paranormal enthusiasts, and historians alike. Tales of drowned sailors, lost keepers, and lingering spirits permeate the lighthouse, and those who venture near often report phantom cries. Carried over the water, shadowy figures climbing the spiral staircase, and doors opening and closing seemingly on their own. Some even claim that the lighthouse beacon swings unnaturally, as if guided by unseen hands, even when the structure is unmanned. Approaching the lighthouse, visitors often sense a shift in atmosphere before stepping onto the pier. The ocean wind is often colder than expected, carrying a sharp bite that cuts through jackets and coats. Fog frequently rolls across the bay, wrapping the lighthouse in a ghostly shroud and muting sounds from the crashing waves. This isolation, combined with the rhythmic pulse of the lighthouse and the natural creaking of its structure, creates an eerie ambience that suggests the presence of something beyond the ordinary. Many visitors describe an immediate feeling of being watched, a tension that grows as they near the spiral staircase or the lantern room. Inside Sabin Point Lighthouse, temperature anomalies are common. Sudden drops in heat can occur in stairwells, storage rooms, and near the lantern, leaving guests shivering and uneasy. Paranormal investigators note that these cold spots often coincide with other phenomena, such as phantom, footsteps, or flickering lights. The sensation of a presence is heightened in these areas, as if unseen spirits are lingering close by, observing those who enter their domain. Many report goosebumps or a prickling sensation along their skin, sometimes accompanied by the unmistakable feeling of a weight pressing subtly against their back or shoulders. Auditory experiences are among the most reported at Sabin Point. Guests often hear cries or moans drifting across the water. Particularly during foggy or stormy nights, the sounds are hauntingly human, sometimes resembling sailors calling for help as they struggle against the waves or officers issuing urgent commands. Inside the lighthouse, footsteps echo along the spiral staircase or across the wooden floors, even when no one else is present. These steps may be slow and deliberate, or hurried and uneven, giving the impression of restless spirits moving with intent. Some visitors have also reported hearing the sound of doors creaking open and shut on their own, as if welcoming or warning those who enter. Whispered voices, often indistinct or fragmented, sometimes drift through corridors, carrying faint names or phrases that hint at long-past conversations and the daily lives of the keepers. Visual phenomena are equally unsettling. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed moving along the stairwell or near the lantern room, appearing briefly in peripheral vision before fading away. Some take on human form, resembling lighthouse keepers in period attire, while others appear as darker, more amorphous shapes. One guest describes seeing a silhouette climbing the spiral staircase, pausing at each landing before vanishing near the top, as if performing a duty left unfinished in life. Another account recalls a shadowy figure lingering near the base of the lantern room, watching the waters below with a vigilance that seemed almost tangible. Witnesses often report a sense of purpose in these apparitions, reinforcing the belief that the spirits are bound by duty and the history of the lighthouse rather than wandering aimlessly. The lighthouse beacon itself plays a central role in many reports. Visitors frequently note that the light flickers or swings unexpectedly, even when the tower is unmanned. Some interpret this as the lingering presence of past keepers maintaining the beacon as they did in life. Others believe it signals the spirits of sailors lost at sea, guiding them or warning of unseen dangers lurking in the waters. The movement and glow of the beacon often coincide with other paranormal activity, creating an immersive, almost cinematic effect for anyone standing on the deck or observing from the shore. Physical sensations accompany both visual and auditory experiences. Many visitors report feeling closely followed while climbing the stairs or exploring the upper levels, the sensation of unseen footsteps echoing alongside their own. A cold breeze may brush across the back of the neck, or an invisible hand may seem to graze the shoulder. These experiences, while brief, are often described as intense and memorable, leaving a lingering sense of presence long after leaving the lighthouse. Guests often feel as though the spirits are interacting directly with them, reinforcing the impression of conscious awareness among the lingering entities. The history of Sabine Point Lighthouse provides context for these encounters. Established in the 19th century, it was manned by keepers who lived in relative isolation while maintaining the light through storms and treacherous seas. Many sailors perished near the rocks despite the lighthouse's guidance, and some keepers themselves met untimely deaths while performing their duties. The combination of isolation, tragedy, and the life and death stakes inherent in maritime service likely left a lasting imprint on the lighthouse, making it a natural focal point for paranormal phenomena. Experts suggest that locations with repeated exposure to human fear, grief, and vigilance often retain spiritual energy, making Sabine Point a hotspot for ghostly activity. Visitors frequently leave Sabine Point Lighthouse with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, phantom cries, flickering lights, and cold spots create a multisensory haunting that leaves a lasting impression. Many report feeling the presence of keepers and lost sailors, sensing that their vigilance and experiences persist within the structure. The lighthouse stands not only as a historical monument, but also as a place where the past continues to exist alongside the present. A reminder of lives lived, lost, and remembered along the rocky Newport coast. Sabine Point Lighthouse endures as both a beacon of safety and a repository of spectral memory. Its echoes of footsteps, cries, and shadowy forms serve as reminders that history is never truly gone. The spirits of sailors and keepers continue to inhabit the tower and its surroundings, ensuring that the lighthouse remains alive with memory, duty, and the unseen presence of those forever bound to its light. Block Island Harbor Light, perched on the rugged shores of Block Island, Rhode Island, has long served as a guardian for vessels navigating the treacherous waters of the island's harbor. Its bright beacon warns of hidden shoals, jagged rocks, and shifting tides, guiding mariners safely to port for more than a century. Yet beyond its practical role, the lighthouse has become a center for stories of paranormal activity, drawing visitors, historians, and ghost hunters alike. Reports of ghostly footsteps echoing in empty halls, whispers calling names, and shadowy figures appearing on the balcony suggests that the lighthouse is more than just a historic structure. Many believe the spirits of mariners lost near the harbor remain bound to the area, wandering the rocks and seeking the safe passage they were denied in life. Visitors approaching Block Island Harbor Light often notice an immediate shift in the atmosphere. The wind off the Atlantic carries a sharp bite, and the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below resonates through the lighthouse and along the cliffs. Fog frequently rolls in from the ocean, shrouding the structure in a ghostly mist and muting distant sounds, creating an air of isolation and suspense. Even on sunny days, enclosed areas inside the lighthouse can feel unexpectedly cold, with sudden gusts of icy air sweeping through the stairwells, observation rooms, and balcony. Guests often report a prickling sensation or the subtle feeling of being watched, as if the lighthouse itself is aware of their presence. Paranormal investigators have noted that these sudden drops in temperature often coincide with other manifestations, such as visual or auditory phenomena, reinforcing the sense that Block Island Harbor Light is alive with residual energy. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported phenomena at the lighthouse. Visitors commonly hear footsteps echoing along the spiral staircase or across the wooden floors, even when the building is entirely empty. The rhythm of these steps varies, sometimes slow and measured, other times hurried and uneven, giving the impression of restless figures moving with intent. Whispered voices are also reported, often carrying fragments of names or phrases that suggest long-forgotten conversations between mariners and lighthouse keepers. Some witnesses claim to hear cries or calls coming from the rocks below, reminiscent of sailors struggling in stormy waters or shouting for help before being claimed by the sea. These auditory experiences are often amplified during stormy nights or when the fog thickens, creating a haunting, immersive environment that can be both thrilling and unsettling. Visual phenomena are frequently observed as well. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed on the balcony, silhouetted against the glow of the lantern or the darkened sky. Some figures appear human, dressed in attire reminiscent of lighthouse keepers or sailors from centuries past, while others are more diffuse, fading in and out of sight. One account describes a figure pacing along the balcony, pausing occasionally as if scanning the horizon for approaching ships before disappearing entirely. Visitors often report a sense of purpose or intent behind these apparitions, suggesting that the spirits are fulfilling duties left unfinished in life. Shadows sometimes appear moving along the stairwell or near the observation deck, giving the impression that unseen figures continue to patrol the lighthouse as they did when it was fully operational. The lighthouse beacon itself is often implicated in reported paranormal activity. Guests have observed the lights flickering, dimming, or swinging slightly without explanation. Some interpret this as the continued work of spirits who maintain the beacon, ensuring its function even in the absence of living keepers. Others believe it may be a signal to the spirits of sailors lost near the harbor, guiding them toward the safety that was denied in life. The interplay between the lighthouse's functional role and its spectral phenomena creates a powerful connection to both history and the supernatural, enhancing the sense that Block Island Harbor Light is a living, breathing entity. Physical sensations often accompany the visual and auditory encounters. Visitors describe sudden brushes of cold air, the feeling of unseen hands on their shoulders, or the impression that footsteps follow them as they explore the spiral staircase or balcony. These experiences, while fleeting, can leave a lasting emotional impact. Many report that the presence feels aware of them, interacting with their movements or even responding to their attempts to communicate. This intensifies the overall haunting, creating a multi-sensory experience that combines sight, sound, and touch. The history of Block Island Harbor Light helps explain the nature of these encounters. Constructed in the 19th century, the lighthouse guided vessels through dangerous waters and endured countless storms. Keepers lived in relative isolation, maintaining the light through fog, wind, and perilous seas. Many mariners lost their lives on the surrounding rocks despite the lighthouse's guidance, and some keepers themselves perished in tragic accidents while performing their duties. The combination of isolation, repeated exposure to danger, and human emotion likely left an enduring imprint, making the lighthouse a natural locus for paranormal activity. Experts suggest that locations marked by intense human experience, life-and-death events, and prolonged vigilance often retain spiritual energy, explaining the persistent hauntings reported at the site. Visitors often leave Block Island Harbor Light with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, phantom footsteps, and flickering lights combine to create an immersive experience that makes the history and tragedies of the lighthouse feel immediate and real. Many report a lingering awareness of the spirits, sensing that the keepers and lost sailors continue to patrol and wander the area, maintaining vigilance and seeking the safety they once provided. The lighthouse stands not only as a historic landmark, but also as a repository of memory, duty, and lingering presence. Block Island Harbor Light endures as both a beacon of safety and a site of enduring spectral activity. Its shadows, whispers, flickering light, and phantom footsteps serve as constant reminders that the past remains intertwined with the present. The spirits of sailors and keepers continue to inhabit the lighthouse and its surrounding rocks, ensuring that its legacy is preserved not only in history books but also in the experiences of those who encounter its supernatural presence along the rugged Block Island coast. Conomica Point Lighthouse, located on the windswept coast of Warwick, Rhode Island, has long stood as a sentinel over Narragansett Bay, warning mariners of treacherous waters and hidden shoals. Its powerful beacon has guided countless ships safely to harbor for over a century. Yet the lighthouse is more than a historic navigational aid. Over the years, it has gained a reputation for paranormal activity, drawing visitors, ghost hunters, and history enthusiasts eager to witness its spectral phenomena. Reports of shadows flitting across windows, phantom footsteps echoing through empty halls, flickering lights, and an unsettling cold presence on the deck suggest that Conomica Point Lighthouse is alive with unseen energy. Many believe the spirits of former keepers and mariners lost nearby continue to haunt the structure, observing the world from the fog that often surrounds it. Visitors approaching the lighthouse often feel an immediate shift in atmosphere. The wind off the bay carries a penetrating chill, and the sound of waves crashing against the rocky shoreline resonates through the lighthouse, amplifying its isolation. Fog frequently rolls in from the water, enshrouding the tower in a spectral mist that obscures the view and heightens the sense of anticipation. Even on clear, sunny days, the interior of the lighthouse can feel unexpectedly cold, with sudden drafts sweeping through stairwells, storage areas, and the observation deck. Guests often report a sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes track their movements. Paranormal investigators have noted that these sudden drops in temperature often coincide with visual and auditory phenomena, suggesting that Conomica Point Lighthouse is a focal point for residual energy left behind by the people who once lived and worked there. Auditory encounters are among the most frequently reported experiences at the lighthouse. Visitors often hear footsteps echoing along the spiral staircase or across the wooden floors, even when the structure is completely empty. The pace of these footsteps can be slow and deliberate, or hurried and uneven, creating the impression of restless figures moving with purpose. Whispers are also common, drifting along corridors, near the lantern room, or across the deck. These murmurs are sometimes unintelligible, but at other times, they carry fragments of names or phrases, hinting at long-forgotten conversations between keepers and sailors. Some guests have described faint cries carried across the water, as if mariners lost to the bay were reaching out for help, their voices echoing through time. These sounds often intensify during foggy nights or storms, when the natural sounds of the environment subside and the supernatural phenomena become more pronounced. Visual phenomena are equally striking. Shadows are frequently reported, flitting across windows or along the spiral staircase, often appearing human in shape. Some figures resemble lighthouse keepers in period attire, moving with purpose, as if tending to their duties even in death. Others are more diffuse, fading in and out of view, leaving only a lingering impression of their presence. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowed figure pacing along the deck, pausing to look out toward the bay, before vanishing into the fog. Witnesses often describe a sense of intent behind these apparitions, suggesting that they are bound by duty or by unfinished business, rather than wandering aimlessly. The lighthouse's lantern room also features prominently in reported hauntings. Visitors frequently note lights flickering or dimming without explanation, sometimes pulsing rhythmically or swinging slightly, even when the lighthouse is unmanned. Some interpret this as the continued work of spirits who maintain the beacon, ensuring it fulfills its role despite the absence of living keepers. Others believe the flickering signals lost sailors, guiding them toward safety or warning of danger. The interplay between light, shadow, and sound contributes to an immersive and unsettling experience, reinforcing the impression that Conomica Point Lighthouse is a living, responsive entity. Physical sensations accompany many of these phenomena. Guests often report feeling a cold presence near the stairwell or on the deck, a subtle pressure on their back or shoulders, or the sensation of being closely followed while exploring the lighthouse. These experiences, while brief, can be intense and emotionally affecting, leaving a lasting sense of unease. Many visitors describe the presence as aware of them, interacting in subtle ways that heighten the overall haunting. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile experiences makes Sakonnet Point Lighthouse a site of multi-dimensional paranormal encounters. The lighthouse's history offers context for its spectral activity. Built in the 19th century, Sakonnet Point Lighthouse was manned by keepers who lived in isolation while tending the light through storms, fog, and harsh coastal conditions. Many sailors were lost to the dangerous waters nearby, while some keepers themselves perished in accidents while performing their duties. The intensity of life and death experiences, combined with isolation and repeated exposure to danger, likely left an enduring spiritual imprint on the lighthouse. Experts in paranormal research suggest that locations associated with repeated human emotion, tragedy, and vigilance often retain energy long after the events have passed, explaining the persistent hauntings observed at Sakonnet Point. Visitors often leave the lighthouse with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, phantom footsteps, and flickering lights combine to create an immersive haunting experience that feels immediate and real. Many report sensing the presence of keepers and lost mariners, observing and maintaining vigilance even in death. Sakonnet Point Lighthouse stands as both a historic maritime landmark and a repository of lingering spirits, preserving the memory of those who lived, worked, and perished along the rocky Rhode Island coast. Sakonnet Point Lighthouse continues to endure as a beacon of guidance and a site of spectral resonance. Its shadows, whispers, cold presence, and flickering light serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers and lost sailors continue to inhabit the lighthouse, maintaining watch over the waters they once navigated, ensuring that the history, tragedy, and vigilance of this historic site remain alive for all who encounter it. Castle Hill Keepers' Quarters, nestled beside the historic Castle Hill Lighthouse in Newport, Rhode Island, has long been the subject of local legend and paranormal fascination. While the lighthouse itself serves as a vital navigational guide for ships navigating the treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay, the adjacent keepers' quarters have taken on a life of their own, reportedly haunted by the spirits of the original family who lived there. Visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike describe whispered voices echoing through empty rooms, shadowy apparitions moving along hallways, and sudden drops in temperature that leave even the bravest explorers shivering. Many believe that the spirits replay daily routines from decades ago, trapped in a spectral loop that mirrors the rhythm of life they once knew. Approaching the keeper's quarters, the first sensation is often a shift in atmosphere. Even on bright, calm days, the wind off the bay carries a sharp chill, sweeping across the grounds and through the aged wooden structures. The surrounding landscape is quiet, with the occasional cry of a gull or the distant crash of waves against a rocky shoreline, adding to the sense of isolation. Fog often rolls in from the harbor, softening the horizon and wrapping the building in a spectral haze. This atmospheric combination primes visitors to feel that they are entering a place that exists on the boundary between the living world and the realm of spirits. Paranormal investigators frequently note that these environmental conditions, chill, isolation, and fog, heighten sensitivity to auditory and visual phenomena, making the quarters a focal point for reported haunting. Auditory experiences are among the most commonly reported phenomena in Castle Hill Keepers' Quarters. Visitors often describe faint whispers drifting through hallways, sometimes carrying fragments of conversations, instructions, or names. These whispers are especially pronounced near the kitchen, stairways, or former bedrooms, suggesting that the spirits are enacting domestic routines. Footsteps echo across creaking floorboards, moving from one end of the building to another, even when no one else is present. Some report hearing the shuffle of furniture or the soft thump of objects being set down, creating the impression of daily activity being carried out by unseen residents. These sounds often intensify during the evening or in foggy conditions, when natural ambient noises fade and the echoes of the past become more prominent. Visual phenomena are also frequently reported. Shadowy figures are glimpsed along corridors, appearing human in form, yet indistinct, as if composed of vapor or fading light. Many witnesses describe figures performing familiar domestic tasks, folding clothes, walking toward the kitchen, or pausing near doorways as if checking on family members. Others report seeing a full-bodied apparition at the foot of the stairwell, clad in period clothing, ascending slowly before disappearing entirely. Visitors often note that these apparitions seem purposeful, replaying routines rather than wandering aimlessly, giving the impression that the spirits are bound to a cycle of daily life, endlessly repeating the tasks of decades past. Temperature anomalies are another hallmark of the hauntings at Castle Hill Keeper's quarters. Sudden cold spots are reported throughout the building, often occurring in hallways, bedrooms, and near staircases. Guests describe feeling a sharp chill sweep across their bodies without warning, sometimes accompanied by goosebumps or a prickle along the spine. Paranormal experts suggest that such cold spots are a common manifestation of spiritual energy, particularly in locations with a history of intense human presence or emotional resonance. The keeper's quarters also appear to be sites of subtle, tactile phenomena. Guests occasionally report the sensation of light touches on their shoulders or arms, the impression that an invisible hand is guiding or brushing past them. These occurrences, though fleeting, often leave a lasting emotional impression, adding to the immersive nature of the haunting. Combined with whispers, footsteps, and visual apparitions, these sensations create a multi-sensory experience that reinforces the sense of life lingering within the structure. The history of the keeper's quarters provides context for these hauntings. Daily life involved meticulous routines, cleaning, cooking, tending to the children, and performing maintenance on the lighthouse. The intensity of these routines, combined with the isolation, exposure to harsh coastal weather, and the constant vigilance required for maritime safety, left an enduring imprint on the building. Many believe that the repetitive, purposeful nature of the keeper's duties is reflected in the spirit's tendency to replay daily routines, trapped in a cycle that mirrors life as it once was. Visitors often leave Castle Hill Keeper's quarters with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, phantom footsteps, and sudden cold spots combine to create an immersive haunting experience. Many report feeling the presence of the original keepers and their families, observing, moving, and enacting the routines that defined their lives. The building stands as both a historic landmark and a repository of lingering energy, preserving the memory, duties, and domestic life of those who lived within its walls. Castle Hill Keeper's quarters continues to endure as a space where history and the supernatural intersect. Its shadows, whispers, footsteps, and cold spots serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers and their families remain present, repeating routines, tending unseen tasks, and watching over the quarters, ensuring that the memory and essence of life from decades past remain alive for all who enter this historic and haunted building. Point Judith Coast Guard Tower, standing sentinel along the rocky coastline of Narragansett, Rhode Island, has long been a beacon for mariners navigating the treacherous waters off the Atlantic. Its sturdy structure rises from the edge of the cliffs, overlooking waves that have claimed countless ships over the centuries. While the tower once served a critical role in maritime safety, today it is just as well known for the spectral activity that surrounds it. Locals and visitors alike report seeing ghostly figures perched on the rocks, hearing cries for help carried on the wind, and noticing lights flicker inexplicably in the tower itself. Kayakers on calm days sometimes glimpse shadows moving across the rocks, figures who appear to be watching the waves in silence, an eerie reminder of the lives lost to the unforgiving sea. As one approaches the Point Judith Coast Guard Tower, the atmosphere shifts subtly. The salty breeze is sharp and cool, carrying the scent of seaweed and brine. Waves crash against the jagged rocks below with a constant, thunderous rhythm, their echoing roar mingling with the cries of gulls and the creaking of the tower itself. Fog frequently drifts in from the ocean, enveloping the cliffside and softening the soundscape, giving the area an almost otherworldly quality. Even on bright, sunny days, The enclosed spaces within the tower can feel unnaturally cold, with sudden gusts sweeping through stairwells, observation platforms, and storage rooms. Many visitors describe the sensation of being observed, a feeling that intensifies when shadows flit across windows or the rocks below. Paranormal researchers have noted that these atmospheric conditions, cold, isolation, and fog heighten awareness of auditory and visual phenomena, making the tower a hotspot for ghostly encounters. Auditory experiences at Point Judith Coast Guard Tower are among the most frequently reported. Visitors often hear phantom footsteps echoing along staircases and across metal catwalks, even when no one is present. The footsteps can vary in pace, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried and uneven, creating the impression of restless spirits moving with purpose. Whispered voices often accompany these steps, drifting through the tower or carried on the wind from the rocks below. These whispers are sometimes unintelligible, but at other times, they seem to call out names or issue faint cries for help, evoking the desperation of sailors who were lost to the sea. At times, the combination of footsteps, whispers, and the rhythmic pulse of the waves creates a chilling symphony that immerses visitors in the tower's haunting presence. Visual phenomena add another layer of unease. Shadowy figures are frequently observed on the tower's observation deck or perched along the rocks below. Some appear human, clothed in period Coast Guard uniforms or the attire of sailors from decades past, while others are more indistinct, fading in and out of sight. Kayakers have reported seeing figures standing silently on the rocks, their gaze fixed on the rolling waves, as if keeping watch over the waters they once patrolled. Inside the tower, visitors sometimes glimpse shadows climbing stairwells or pausing near doorways, figures that vanish when approached. Many witnesses describe these apparitions as purposeful, enacting tasks or maintaining vigilance in a manner consistent with their lives before death. The tower's lights often play a central role in paranormal reports. Guests have observed flickering and dimming without explanation, sometimes pulsing rhythmically or swinging slightly, even when the tower is unmanned. Some interpret this as spirits maintaining their duties, ensuring the beacon continues to warn sailors even in the absence of living keepers. Others believe the flickering may signal lost mariners, guiding them toward safety or acknowledging their presence. The interplay between light, shadow, and sound contributes to a compelling, immersive environment, enhancing the impression that the tower is alive with unseen inhabitants. Physical sensations are another hallmark of the haunting. Visitors often report sudden chills, the feeling of unseen hands brushing their shoulders, or the sense of being followed while ascending stairwells or exploring the observation platforms. These experiences, while fleeting, can leave a profound impression. Many describe the presence as conscious, responsive to their movements, and aware of their proximity, which heightens the overall intensity of the encounter. Combined with auditory and visual phenomena, these sensations create a full-bodied experience of the supernatural, blending sound, sight, and touch. The history of the Point Judith Coast Guard Tower provides context for the hauntings. Established to monitor the rocky coastline and safeguard passing vessels, the tower has witnessed countless shipwrecks and maritime tragedies. Coast Guard personnel and sailors alike faced isolation, harsh weather, and the constant threat of disaster while performing their duties. Some lost their lives to storms or accidents, while countless mariners perished in the surrounding waters. Experts suggest that locations marked by repeated exposure to danger, grief, and human vigilance often retain spiritual energy, which may explain why the tower continues to be a site of paranormal activity. Visitors frequently leave the tower with a lasting sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered cries, flickering lights, and chilling touches combine to create an immersive haunting that makes the history of the tower immediate and tangible. Many report sensing the presence of Coast Guard keepers and lost sailors, observing and patrolling the rocks and waters, continuing the duties they were once entrusted with. The tower endures not only as a navigational landmark, but also as a repository for the memories and spirits of those who lived and died in its shadow. Point Judith Coast Guard Tower remains both a beacon of safety and a site of lingering spectral presence. Its shadows, whispers, flickering lights, and phantom figures serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers and lost mariners continue to inhabit the tower and its surrounding rocks, eternally vigilant, ensuring that the legacy of the tower and the memory of lives claimed by the sea remain alive for all who venture near. Beavertail Keeper's House, perched on the rocky cliffs of Jamestown, Rhode Island, has long stood as a quiet companion to the historic Beavertail Lighthouse. While the lighthouse itself has guided countless vessels through the treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay, the adjacent Keeper's House holds its own spectral reputation. Visitors often report seeing shadows flit across rooms, hearing whispers and footsteps in spaces that are otherwise empty, and experiencing sudden cold drafts that seem to follow them from room to room. Some say that the spirits of past keepers remain faithfully performing the nightly duties they once carried out in life, tending to the light and ensuring the safety of mariners far below. Approaching the Keeper's House, guests immediately sense a change in the atmosphere. The salty breeze from the Atlantic carries a biting chill, rustling through the rocks and grass surrounding the building. The sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below resonates through the structure, mingling with the cries of gulls and the distant hum of the lighthouse. Fog often drifts in from the water, softening the horizon and cloaking the house in a spectral haze. Even on sunny days, the interior of the Keeper's House can feel unusually cold, with sudden drafts sweeping through the hallways, bedrooms, and living spaces. Many visitors describe a sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes follow their every movement. Paranormal investigators note that these environmental conditions, isolated location, cold drafts, and persistent fog heighten sensitivity to unusual phenomena, making the Keeper's House a hotspot for reported hauntings. Auditory encounters are among the most common experiences reported within the Keeper's House. Guests often hear footsteps echoing along wooden floors or descending staircases, despite the absence of anyone else in the building. The cadence of these steps varies, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times uneven and hurried, creating the impression of restless spirits moving with intent. Whispered voices are another frequent phenomenon, drifting through the hallways, near bedrooms, or along the staircases. Occasionally, the murmurs carry fragments of words or names, resembling the conversations or instructions of keepers from decades past. Some visitors describe faint cries that seem to emanate from the cliffs or the rocks below. The echoes of mariners lost to the bay, carried back through time to the house itself. Visual manifestations further reinforce the house's haunted reputation. Shadowy figures are often seen moving across rooms or near doorways, sometimes solid enough to make out the outline of a human form, other times diffuse and fading in and out of sight. Many guests report seeing figures in period attire, moving as if performing domestic or lighthouse-related duties. One witness described a shadowy figure bending over a desk, then disappearing when approached, while another saw a faint silhouette walking from the kitchen toward the stairs, pausing briefly before vanishing. These apparitions are often described as purposeful, repeating routines or movements that mirror the daily tasks of past keepers, giving the impression of a spectral loop that preserves the rhythm of life within the house. Temperature anomalies are a hallmark of the haunting. Sudden cold spots appear throughout the building, particularly in hallways, near staircases, or by windows overlooking the cliffs. Visitors frequently report feeling a sharp, inexplicable chill, sometimes accompanied by goosebumps or a sensation of pressure along the spine. Paranormal researchers suggest that such cold spots are often indicative of spiritual energy, particularly in places where life, death, and prolonged human activity intersect. In the Keeper's House, these cold patches often coincide with auditory or visual phenomena, reinforcing the impression that the spirits remain present and aware of their surroundings. Physical sensations also accompany these paranormal occurrences. Guests occasionally feel a light touch on their shoulders or arms, the impression of a presence moving behind them, or the sense of being closely followed while exploring the house. These fleeting experiences often leave a profound emotional impact, heightening the immersive nature of the haunting. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena creates a multi-dimensional encounter that makes the history and lingering presence of the keepers feel immediate and tangible. The history of Beavertail Keeper's House provides context for the haunt, built alongside the lighthouse in the 19th century. It housed the lighthouse keepers and their families, who lived in relative isolation while maintaining the beacon. Keepers endured storms, isolation, and the constant pressure of ensuring that vessels navigated safely through the bay. The intensity of these duties, combined with exposure to life-and-death situations, likely left a residual energy within the house, imprinted by the focus, vigilance, and tragedy experienced by its occupants. Paranormal experts often note that places marked by prolonged human activity, emotional intensity, and repeated routines are more likely to retain spiritual energy, providing an explanation for the persistent hauntings at the keeper's house. Visitors often leave Beavertail Keeper's House with a deep sense of connection to the past. Shadows, whispers, footsteps, and cold drafts combine to create a haunting experience that feels alive and immediate. Many report sensing the presence of the keepers, observing, moving, and performing their duties as they did long ago. The house stands as both a historic landmark and a repository of lingering energy, preserving the memory, rituals, and dedication of those who once lived within its walls. Beavertail Keeper's House continues to endure as a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Its shadows, whispers, footsteps, and chilling drafts serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers and their families remain present, repeating daily tasks, maintaining vigilance and watching over the cliffs and waters, ensuring that the legacy of the lighthouse and the memories of those who served there are alive for all who visit. Rhode Island Fog Signal Station, perched on the rocky shores off Newport, Rhode Island, has guided countless mariners safely through the treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay. Its foghorn once pierced the dense coastal mists, warning ships of hidden reefs and rocky outcrops, a lifeline for sailors navigating the often unforgiving Atlantic. Though the station is long abandoned, it has gained a reputation for paranormal activity. Visitors report ghostly apparitions of Coast Guard members, hearing commands shouted across the wind, and witnessing lights flicker or turn on without explanation. Many believe that the spirits of past personnel continue their duties, patrolling the island for eternity, ensuring that the legacy of the station endures. Approaching the fog signal station, the first thing one notices is the isolation. The station stands alone on a rocky outcropping, surrounded by the constant roar of the ocean and the cry of gulls. Waves crash violently against the jagged rocks below, sending spray into the air and creating an ever-present soundtrack of natural chaos. Fog frequently rolls in from the bay, blanketing the station in a thick, ethereal veil. Even on bright days, the interior of the station feels cold and damp, with sudden gusts of wind sweeping through hallways, stairwells, and storage rooms. Visitors often report a sense of being observed, as if unseen eyes track their movements across the decks and within the building itself. Paranormal investigators have noted that these environmental factors, strong winds, fog, isolation, and the sound of the xylophone, heighten the perception of spectral activity, making the station a magnet for ghostly encounters. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported phenomena at the station. Guests describe hearing footsteps echoing along metal catwalks and wooden floors, moving from room to room even when no one else is present. The cadence of these steps varies, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried and uneven, creating the impression of restless spirits moving with purpose. Shouts and commands are often heard carried across the wind, as though officers are issuing orders to unseen personnel. Some visitors claim to hear the sound of distant machinery operating, the rhythmic pulse of the foghorn, or the clanging of equipment being moved. These sounds often intensify during storms or heavy fog, when the natural noises of the ocean fade into the background and the presence of the past feels more immediate. Visual phenomena are also widely reported. Shadowy figures appear on the decks, along stairwells, or near windows. Sometimes solid enough to discern the outline of a human form, at other times diffuse and flickering, at the edge of vision. Many witnesses describe seeing figures dressed in period Coast Guard uniforms, performing routine tasks such as inspecting equipment, climbing staircases, or patrolling the grounds. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowed officer standing at attention near the foghorn, turning as if scanning the horizon before disappearing. Others have seen fleeting silhouettes moving through interior rooms, vanishing when approached. These visual manifestations often appear purposeful, as though the spirits are bound to their former duties, continuing to maintain the station long after death. Lights at the Rhode Island fog signal station also contribute to the sense of haunting. Guests frequently report fixtures turning on or off without power, casting eerie glows in hallways or across decks. Some lights flicker in irregular patterns, illuminating the rooms in sudden bursts that reveal no living occupants. Investigators suggest that these phenomena may be linked to residual energy, echoing the long hours of duty and vigilance maintained by the Coast Guard personnel who once worked there. The interplay between light, shadow, and sound creates a deeply immersive experience, enhancing the impression that the station is alive with the presence of those who once tended the foghorn and patrolled the rocky island. Temperature anomalies are another common feature of the haunting. Visitors often encounter sudden drops in temperature, particularly near stairwells, equipment rooms, and observation points. These cold spots can be sharp and intense, sometimes accompanied by goosebumps or a prickling sensation along the spine. Paranormal experts suggest that sudden chills are indicative of spiritual energy, particularly in locations where intense human activity and emotional dedication intersect. In the case of Rhode Island, these sensations often coincide with auditory and visual phenomena, reinforcing the impression that the spirits remain aware of their surroundings and their duties. Physical sensations further enhance the spectral experience. Guests occasionally report the feeling of being brushed past by unseen hands, or the sensation that someone is moving closely behind them. These fleeting touches, though subtle, leave a profound emotional impact, heightening the sense of immersion. Combined with footsteps, whispered commands, and shadowy figures, they create a multisensory encounter that allows visitors to feel the lingering presence of the past. The history of Rhode Island Fog Signal Station provides context for the haunting. Established to aid navigation through one of the most dangerous stretches of water in Narragansett Bay, it was staffed by Coast Guard members who lived and worked in isolation, exposed to storms, rough seas, and the constant threat of maritime disaster. The station witnessed countless rescues and tragedies, with lives lost both on the rocky shores and at sea. Many believe that the intensity of these experiences, combined with the repeated routines and vigilance of personnel, left a residual energy within the station, preserving the presence of its keepers long after their deaths. Visitors often leave Rhode Island Fog Signal Station with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered commands, flickering lights, and chilling drafts combine to create an immersive haunting, allowing guests to experience the station as it was long ago. The spirits of Coast Guard members continue to patrol the decks, tend to the foghorn, and watch over the surrounding waters, maintaining their eternal vigilance. Rhode Island Fog Signal Station endures as a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Its shadows, whispers, lights, and phantom figures serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers and Coast Guard members remain present, eternally patrolling the island, ensuring that the legacy of the station and the memory of those who served there continue to resonate with all who visit. Point Judith Keeper's Cottage, situated near the iconic lighthouse in Narragansett, Rhode Island, has long been a site of paranormal fascination. While the lighthouse guides ships safely through the rocky coastline and turbulent waters of Narragansett Bay, the Keeper's Cottage stands as a silent witness to decades of maritime history and to the restless spirits said to linger within its walls. Visitors frequently report shadowy figures moving along hallways, unexplained noises echoing in empty rooms, and doors opening or closing on their own. Some claim to hear the faint sound of waves crashing against the rocks below, amplified with a ghostly intensity that seems to fill the cottage itself. These experiences suggest that the spirits of former lighthouse keepers continue to inhabit the space, performing tasks and maintaining watch as they once did in life. Approaching the keeper's cottage, a visitor first senses a shift in the atmosphere. The salty ocean breeze sweeps across the grounds, carrying the scent of seaweed and brine. The rhythmic crash of waves against the jagged shoreline below mixes with the cries of gulls, creating a constant soundtrack that amplifies the feeling of isolation. Fog frequently drifts in from the bay, softening the edges of the landscape and enveloping the cottage in an ethereal shroud. Even on bright, sunny days, the interior of the cottage can feel unnaturally cold, with sudden drafts rushing through hallways, bedrooms, and living spaces. Many visitors describe a sensation of being observed, a quiet awareness that unseen eyes are tracking their movements through the house. Paranormal investigators note that these environmental factors, remote location, constant ocean sounds, fog, and drafts enhance sensitivity to unusual phenomena, making the keeper's cottage a focal point for ghostly encounters. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Guests often hear footsteps echoing across wooden floors, moving along hallways or descending staircases even when no one else is present. The pace of these steps varies, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried and uneven, giving the impression of restless spirits moving with purpose. Whispered voices are commonly heard drifting through the rooms, sometimes faint and unintelligible, other times calling out names or issuing directions as though performing routine tasks. The sound of doors creaking open or slamming shut without explanation adds to the unsettling atmosphere. Many witnesses also report hearing the amplified roar of waves, louder than the natural surf outside, as if the spirits themselves are amplifying the ocean, as presents to mark their territory or remind visitors of their eternal connection to the bay. Visual phenomena reinforce the cottage's haunted reputation. Shadowy figures are frequently seen along corridors, near doorways, or in corners of rooms. Some appear human in form, while others are more diffuse, flickering at the edge of vision. Many witnesses describe seeing apparitions dressed in period clothing, moving as if performing domestic or lighthouse-related duties. One visitor recounted seeing a faint figure bending over a desk, seemingly writing or checking logs, while another saw a shadow climbing a staircase, pausing momentarily before vanishing. These apparitions often appear purposeful, mirroring the repetitive routines that characterize the daily life of the keepers and their families, suggesting that the spirits are bound to the cottage by their former duties. Temperature anomalies are another hallmark of the hauntings. Visitors frequently experience sudden cold spots, particularly near stairwells, bedrooms, and windows overlooking the cliffs and ocean. These chills are sharp and inexplicable, sometimes accompanied by goosebumps or a prickling sensation along the spine. Paranormal experts note that such phenomena are common in locations with high historical activity or emotional significance, especially in spaces where isolation and intense labor defined daily life. In the keeper's cottage, cold spots often coincide with auditory or visual phenomena, reinforcing the sense that spirits are present and attentive. Physical sensations also play a role in the haunting. Guests occasionally report the feeling of being brushed past by unseen hands, or the impression that someone is walking closely behind them. These fleeting touches, though subtle, leave a lasting impression, heightening the immersive nature of the encounter. Combined with footsteps, whispers, shadowy figures, and amplified ocean sounds, the cottage provides a full-spectrum paranormal experience, engaging the senses of hearing, sight, and touch simultaneously. The history of Point Judith Keeper's Cottage provides context for the ongoing haunting. Built alongside the lighthouse in the 19th century, it housed the lighthouse keepers and their families, who lived in relative isolation while tending to the beacon. Daily life involved meticulous routines, maintaining logs, cleaning, cooking, monitoring the lighthouse, and watching the shoreline for potential dangers. Keepers were exposed to harsh weather, rough seas, and the constant pressure of preventing maritime disasters. Many lost their lives to storms or accidents along the rocky coast, while countless sailors perished in the surrounding waters. Experts suggest that locations marked by repeated exposure to danger, grief, and repetitive labor often retain spiritual energy, which may explain the continued activity within the cottage. Visitors often leave the keeper's cottage with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, doors opening on their own, and amplified waves create an immersive haunting that makes the history of the lighthouse and its keepers tangible. Guests report sensing the presence of former keepers, moving through the rooms, performing their duties, and watching over the cliffs and ocean below. The cottage serves as both a historical landmark and a repository of lingering energy, preserving the memory, routines, and dedication of those who lived and worked there. Point Judith Keeper's Cottage endures as a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Its shadows, whispers, footsteps, cold spots, and amplified ocean sounds remind visitors that the past is never truly gone. The spirits of keepers continue to inhabit the cottage, performing tasks, maintaining vigilance, and watching over the bay, ensuring that the legacy of the lighthouse and the memories of those who served there remained alive for all who enter this haunted space. Sakonnet, Keeper's Quarters, situated near the rugged coastline of Little Compton, Rhode Island, has long carried a reputation for eerie occurrences. While the nearby Sakonnet Lighthouse has guided countless vessels safely through treacherous waters, the Keeper's Quarters have become known for the spectral presence of those who once lived and worked there. Visitors frequently report whispers drifting through empty hallways, shadowy figures pacing along the floors, and sudden drops in temperature that seem to follow them from room to room. Some even claim that objects, tools, books, or personal belongings shift or move on their own, as though tended by unseen hands. The hauntings suggest that the spirits of keepers who died tragically remain bound to the quarters by duty, routine, or unresolved fate. Approaching the quarters, the atmosphere immediately feels different. The salty breeze sweeps over the cliffs and rocks surrounding the building, carrying with it the constant roar of the Atlantic Ocean. Waves crash with relentless force against the jagged shore, and gulls cry overhead, their calls echoing along the coastline. Fog often rolls in from the bay, softening the horizon and shrouding the quarters in a veil of gray that seems almost supernatural. Even on bright, clear days, the interior of the building can feel unexpectedly cold. Sudden drafts move through hallways, stairwells, and living spaces, creating the sense that unseen presences are shifting around visitors. Many describe an almost tangible feeling of being observed, as if the spirits are following their movements through the quarters, quietly monitoring every step. Auditory phenomena are among the most commonly reported experiences. Guests often hear footsteps along wooden floors or staircases, even when the building is empty. These footsteps can vary in speed and intensity, sometimes slow and measured, at other times hurried and uneven, suggesting restless activity. Whispered voices drift through rooms, often unintelligible but occasionally forming words or fragments of sentences, as if the keepers are replaying conversations from decades past. Some witnesses describe hearing faint calls for help, cries of distress that seem to emanate from the walls themselves, or the rhythmic creaking of doors opening and closing by themselves. At times, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below is amplified, distorted, and almost sentient, filling the quarters with a chilling echo that seems tied to the presence of the departed keepers. Visual phenomena add another layer of eeriness. Shadowy figures are frequently observed pacing hallways, standing near doorways, or moving silently across rooms. Many witnesses describe seeing apparitions in period clothing, performing routine tasks such as checking logs, cleaning, or tending to equipment. One visitor recalled seeing a shadow bending over a desk as if reviewing records, while another saw a figure pause at a window, gazing toward the ocean before vanishing. These apparitions often appear purposeful, as though replaying the habits and duties that once defined daily life in the quarters. Their movements suggest a temporal loop, where the keepers continue to perform their work long after death. Temperature anomalies are a hallmark of the hauntings. Visitors frequently encounter sudden cold spots, particularly near stairwells, bedrooms, or windows overlooking the coastline. These chills are sharp and pervasive, often accompanied by goosebumps or a prickling sensation along the spine. Paranormal investigators suggest that such cold spots are indicative of spiritual energy, especially in locations where life, labor, and tragedy intersect. In Sakonnet keepers' quarters, these cold anomalies often coincide with auditory or visual phenomena, reinforcing the impression that the spirits are not only present but aware of the living around them. Physical sensations further deepen the haunting. Guests occasionally report feeling a light touch on their shoulders or the sensation of someone moving closely behind them. Objects shifting without explanation, books sliding across tables, keys moving from one surface to another, heighten the sense of interaction between the living and the departed. These subtle, yet profound, experiences leave visitors with a lasting impression of the quarters as a place where the boundary between past and present is thin. The history of Sakonnet keepers' quarters provides context for the reported activity. Constructed to house lighthouse keepers and their families, the building was home to those charged with maintaining the beacon, monitoring the coastline, and ensuring the safety of passing vessels. Life was grueling and isolated. Keepers faced harsh weather, the threat of shipwrecks, and the relentless pressure of preventing maritime disasters. Tragic accidents, storms, and untimely deaths claimed the lives of some who lived there, leaving a legacy of sorrow and unresolved energy. Paranormal experts suggest that such sites, marked by repeated exposure to danger, emotional intensity, and rigorous routines, often retain spiritual residue, creating conditions conducive to haunt. Visitors frequently leave Sakonnet keepers' quarters with a deep sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, unexplained movements, and sudden cold spots combine to create an immersive experience that brings history to life in a hauntingly tangible way. Guests often sense the presence of the keepers, moving about, performing tasks, and maintaining their eternal watch over the lighthouse and the surrounding waters. The quarters serve as both a historical landmark and a repository of lingering energy, preserving the memory, dedication, and tragedies of those who lived within its walls. Sakonnet keepers' quarters endures as a location where history and the supernatural intertwine. Shadows, whispers, footsteps, sudden chills, and objects moving seemingly of their own accord are a testament to the ongoing presence of past keepers. The spirits remain vigilant, bound to their routines and the coastline they once protected, ensuring that the legacy of the lighthouse and the lives of those who served there continue to resonate for all who enter this haunted space. Brenton Reef Keeper's House, located on the isolated offshore rocks of Newport, Rhode Island, is a place where maritime history and the supernatural seem to converge. Built to house the keepers responsible for maintaining the Brenton Reef Lighthouse, the structure has long been known for its haunted reputation. Visitors consistently report phantom footsteps echoing across the wooden floors, flickering lights that defy explanation, and whispers carrying names or fragments of sentences through empty rooms. Some claim to feel an unseen presence close behind them as they move through hallways, a sensation that creates both unease and fascination. The house stands as a silent testament to the lives of those who lived and worked on the reef, with the spirits of past keepers believed to remain bound to the property, continuing their duties in spectral form. Approaching the keeper's house, one is immediately struck by its remoteness. Surrounded by the jagged rocks of Brenton Reef and constantly battered by the wind and surf, the house seems suspended between sea and sky. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks below is ever present, sometimes soft and rhythmic, other times crashing violently, shaking the foundations and carrying a primal energy. Fog often rolls in from the bay, enveloping the house in a dense, shifting mist that blurs the boundaries between land, sea, and sky. Even on bright days, the interior can feel unusually cold, with sudden gusts of wind sweeping through the rooms, giving the impression that the house itself is alive with unseen activity. Visitors often describe a sense of being watched, an invisible presence following their movements through the building's corridors and stairwells. Paranormal investigators note that isolation, exposure to harsh weather, and constant proximity to the ocean heighten sensitivity to unusual phenomena, making the keeper's house a hotspot for ghostly encounters. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Guests often hear the sound of footsteps pacing the wooden floors, moving from one room to another, despite the absence of anyone else. These steps vary in pace, sometimes slow and methodical, other times hurried or uneven, creating the impression of restless spirits performing their daily routines. Whispered voices are another common occurrence, often calling out names, issuing instructions, or repeating fragments of conversations that seem to belong to the keepers of decades past. Some visitors report hearing the metallic creak of staircases, doors opening or closing without explanation, and the low hum of machinery long abandoned. These sounds often intensify during storms or heavy fog, when the natural noises of the sea fade into the background, and the presence of the past feels almost tangible. Visual manifestations add to the eerie reputation of the house. Shadowy figures are frequently observed moving along corridors, standing in corners, or near windows overlooking the reef. Many witnesses describe apparitions in period clothing, sometimes performing tasks such as checking logs, cleaning, or climbing staircases, mimicking the routines of life when the house was occupied. One guest reported seeing a shadow bend over a desk as if examining records, while another witnessed a faint figure pause at a window, gazing toward the turbulent waters before fading from view. These apparitions often appear purposeful, repeating the daily duties of keepers, suggesting that the spirits are bound to the house by the routines and responsibilities they carried in life. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the haunting. Guests commonly report lamps, sconces, or overhead fixtures turning on and off without power. Occasionally, lights flash or dim in irregular patterns, casting shadows that seem to move independently of the physical environment. Investigators suggest that these anomalies may reflect residual energy from long years of activity and vigilance by the keepers. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound creates a fully immersive experience, giving the impression that the house is alive with the echoes of the past. Temperature anomalies further enhance the spectral atmosphere. Sudden cold spots appear throughout the house, particularly in stairwells, bedrooms, and near windows overlooking the rocky reef. These chills are sharp, often accompanied by goosebumps or a prickle along the spine. Paranormal experts note that such sudden drops in temperature are indicative of spiritual energy, especially in locations marked by long-term human occupation, emotional intensity, or repetitive routines. In the keeper's house, cold spots often coincide with auditory or visual phenomena, reinforcing the impression that spirits are actively present and aware of their physical sensations. Complete the haunting experience. Visitors occasionally feel a light touch on their shoulders or a presence close behind them as they move through rooms or along hallways. Objects are sometimes reported to shift or move without explanation. A book sliding across a table, a chair tipped over, or a lantern moved slightly from its usual spot. These subtle, yet profound, interactions create the sense that the keepers remain present, tending to the house and its surroundings, as they once did, even in death. The history of Brenton Reef Keeper's house explains much about the continued activity. Built in the 19th century to accommodate lighthouse keepers and their families, it was home to individuals who faced harsh conditions, isolation, and the constant responsibility of ensuring maritime safety. Keepers maintained logs, cleaned, repaired, and patrolled the house and lighthouse tirelessly. Many lived under constant threat from storms and the rocky terrain, with some losing their lives to accidents or extreme weather. Experts suggest that locations characterized by intense labor, repeated routines, and emotional or physical hardship often retain spiritual energy, creating the conditions for ongoing haunting. Visitors often leave Brenton Reef Keeper's house with a deep sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures, whispered voices, flickering lights, sudden chills, and objects moving seemingly on their own create an immersive experience that evokes the life and dedication of the keepers who once resided there. Guests frequently report sensing the presence of these spirits, observing, moving, and performing their duties in an eternal loop. The house functions as both a historical landmark and a vessel of lingering energy, preserving the memory of the keepers' lives and work. Brenton Reef Keeper's house endures as a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Shadows, whispers, footsteps, flickering lights, and chilling presences remind visitors that the past never truly fades. The spirits of keepers remain vigilant, tending to the house and the lighthouse, ensuring that the legacy of maritime safety and the memories of those who served continue to resonate for all who enter this haunted space. Sakonnet Lighthouse Dock, located in Warwick, Rhode Island, is a place where the sea meets the supernatural. For decades, mariners have relied on the lighthouse to navigate the treacherous waters of Narragansett Bay. Yet the dock itself has gained a reputation for ghostly activity. Witnesses frequently report seeing figures rising from the water, phantom footsteps echoing along the wooden planks, and whispers carried by the wind that seem to call out from the depths. Some visitors even claim to feel unseen hands brush past them as they walk along the fog-shrouded dock, a chilling sensation that leaves them shivering and acutely aware of the presence of lost souls. The dock, once a hub of maritime activity, has become a liminal space where the memories of sailors lost to the bay linger, refusing to rest. Approaching the dock, one is immediately struck by the atmosphere. The smell of salt and seaweed fills the air, and the rhythmic crashing of waves against the pilings creates a constant, almost hypnotic background sound. On foggy days, the dock seems to vanish into a gray void, with the water and sky blending into an indistinguishable haze. The wooden planks creak underfoot even when no one else is present, heightening the sense of isolation and anticipation. The fog carries sounds from the water and surrounding shore, often amplifying faint noises and turning them into something eerie and unfamiliar. Visitors frequently report that the sensation of being watched is nearly constant, as though unseen eyes track every movement along the dock, waiting silently for the next arrival. Auditory phenomena dominate many of the encounters at Sakonnet Lighthouse Dock. Witnesses often hear the unmistakable sound of footsteps pacing along the planks, echoing in time with the waves below. These footsteps are reported both during the day and at night, sometimes slow and methodical, other times quick and erratic, creating the impression of restless spirits moving with urgency. Whispered voices are another common experience, drifting across the water or through the fog as if carried by the wind itself. Some witnesses hear the faint murmurs of sailors calling out names or issuing commands, while others report plaintive cries of distress, as though the dead are replaying moments of panic or confusion from their final moments. These sounds are often accompanied by a heightened sense of the water around the dock, as if the bay itself amplifies the presence of those who perished there. Visual manifestations further reinforce the dock's haunted reputation. Figures are occasionally seen rising from the water, often appearing translucent or shadowy. Some witnesses describe silhouettes climbing onto the dock or standing near the railings, watching silently before vanishing into mist. Others report seeing apparitions dressed in old maritime uniforms, moving with purpose along the planks, as if performing tasks that were once essential to their survival. One visitor described a faint figure reaching out toward a boat tied to the dock, only to disappear as the fog thickened. These apparitions often appear intentional, suggesting that the spirits are bound to the dock by duty, tragedy, or unresolved events from their past lives. Physical sensations add another layer of intensity to the haunting. Guests frequently report the feeling of hands brushing past their arms or shoulders, sometimes accompanied by a sudden chill that runs through the body. These touches are fleeting yet unmistakable, leaving visitors acutely aware of an unseen presence. The combination of tactile experiences, phantom footsteps, whispers, and fleeting figures creates a multi-sensory encounter, making the dock a space where the living can feel intimately connected to the experiences of the dead. Temperature anomalies are also commonly reported. Sudden drops in temperature occur in various parts of the dock, particularly near pilings, stairways, or the water's edge. These cold spots often coincide with visual or auditory phenomena, reinforcing the perception that spirits are actively present. Paranormal experts suggest that such temperature changes are indicative of spiritual energy, particularly in locations associated with intense emotional or physical experiences, such as the perils faced by sailors navigating dangerous waters. The history of Sakonnet Lighthouse Dock helps explain the ongoing activity. For over a century, it served as a landing point for keepers and sailors, a place where boats were loaded and unloaded, and where lives were saved or lost in the unforgiving bay. Many sailors perished near the dock, victims of storms, collisions, or accidents while tying boats to the pilings. Keepers of the lighthouse spent long hours maintaining the beacon, often witnessing tragedies unfold on the water below. Experts suggest that locations marked by repeated exposure to danger, emotional intensity, and death often retain spiritual energy, making them fertile ground for hauntings. Visitors often leave the dock with a profound sense of history and unease. The sound of phantom footsteps, whispers carried by the wind, sudden cold drafts, and shadowy figures rising from the water creates an immersive and haunting experience. Guests frequently report sensing the presence of lost sailors moving among them, replaying moments of their final struggles or watching over the dock as if guarding the water they once navigated. The dock functions not only as a historical landmark but also as a vessel for the lingering energy of the past, preserving the memories of lives lost and the duties performed along its planks. Sakonnet Lighthouse Dock endures as a place where history and the supernatural merge. Shadows, whispers, phantom footsteps, chilling touches, and apparitions rising from the water remind visitors that the bay has long held secrets and tragedies that have not faded. The spirits of lost sailors remain present, bound to the dock, silently enacting their final moments and ensuring that the memory of those who served and perished in Narragansett Bay continues to resonate with all who venture onto this haunted pier. Rhode Island Pier, part of the historic lighthouse complex off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island, has long been known for its eerie and otherworldly atmosphere. At night, the pier seems to take on a life of its own, shrouded in fog and mystery. Visitors often report ghostly figures appearing amid the mist, flickering lights that defy explanation, and whispers carried across the water as if by unseen voices. Many believe the spirits haunting the pier are trapped between the lighthouse and the sea, eternally watching the waves, tethered to the place where their lives or duties ended. The combination of isolation, history, and maritime tragedy creates an environment where the veil between the living and the dead feels remarkably thin. Approaching Rhode Island Pier, the first thing that strikes a visitor is the constant presence of the ocean. The roar of waves crashing against the rocky shore below fills the air, mingling with the distant calls of seagulls. Fog often drifts in from the bay, enveloping the pier and lighthouse in a dense, gray haze. This mist softens the edges of the landscape, creating a sense of disorientation and making it difficult to distinguish between reality and the spectral. Even on sunny days, the interior and exterior of the pier can feel unusually cold, with sudden gusts of wind sweeping across the planks and through the surrounding structures. Many visitors report a strong sensation of being watched, an almost imperceptible awareness that unseen eyes are tracking their movements. Paranormal investigators suggest that the pier's isolation, exposure to harsh weather, and long history of maritime activity all contribute to heightened sensitivity to unusual phenomena. Auditory experiences are among the most common manifestations reported at Rhode Island Pier. Guests frequently hear footsteps echoing along the wooden planks, often when no one else is present. The rhythm of these footsteps varies, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried or uneven, as if restless spirits are pacing with purpose. Whispered voices are often carried across the fog-laden air, faint yet distinct, occasionally calling out names or giving commands reminiscent of the lighthouse keeper's routines. Some visitors have reported hearing the crash of waves amplified within the pier itself, as though the spirits are drawing the ocean's energy to communicate or mark their presence. The combination of natural and supernatural sounds creates a haunting auditory landscape that immerses anyone walking along the pier. Visual phenomena further reinforce the haunting reputation of the pier. Shadowy figures are often observed moving along the planks or standing near the edge, gazing out toward the ocean. Many witnesses describe seeing apparitions in period clothing, performing tasks reminiscent of life as lighthouse keepers or sailors. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowy figure adjusting a lantern near the railing, while another described a faint form pacing the pier as though keeping watch over the bay. These apparitions often appear purposeful, suggesting that the spirits are bound by their duties or by the circumstances surrounding their deaths. The fog amplifies the effect, making figures appear and disappear suddenly, adding to the sense of disorientation and unease. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the hauntings. Visitors report lanterns or lights in the lighthouse complex, turning on and off without power, sometimes casting long, moving shadows across the pier. These lights often appear to react to human presence, flickering more intensely when someone approaches or lingers in certain areas. Paranormal investigators suggest that such phenomena may be tied to residual energy left by lighthouse keepers and sailors, who spent long hours tending to the pier and beacon, their routines and memories lingering in the space. The interplay of light and shadow creates an environment that feels alive with unseen activity, reinforcing the pier's reputation as a site of spectral presence. Temperature anomalies are also commonly reported. Sudden drops in temperature occur at various points along the pier, particularly near corners, railings, or areas overlooking the water. These cold spots often coincide with other phenomena, such as whispered voices, flickering lights, or visual apparitions, reinforcing the sense that spirits are actively present. Guests frequently describe these chills as intense and penetrating, leaving them with goosebumps or a prickling sensation along the spine. Physical sensations, such as the feeling of being brushed past or lightly touched by unseen hands, are reported occasionally, further intensifying the ghostly experience. The history of Rhode Island Pier provides context for these ongoing hauntings. The pier served as a critical hub for lighthouse keepers and maritime traffic, allowing supplies and personnel to reach the offshore lighthouse safely. Over the decades, the area witnessed countless storms, accidents, and the loss of sailors navigating the bay. Keepers often lived in isolation, maintaining the light while observing the ever-changing waters below, sometimes witnessing tragedies unfold with little hope of intervention. Experts suggest that locations marked by danger, repetitive labor, and emotional intensity often retain spiritual energy, creating fertile ground for paranormal activity. The pier's history of maritime tragedy, coupled with its isolation and connection to the lighthouse, makes it a natural conduit for lingering spirits. Visitors to Rhode Island Pier often leave with a profound sense of connection to the past. Phantom footsteps, whispers, flickering lights, and shadowy figures combine to create an immersive haunting, offering a glimpse into the lives of those who once worked and perished on the pier. Guests frequently report sensing the presence of lost sailors and keepers, moving among them, observing, and maintaining watch over the waters they once knew intimately. The pier functions not only as a historical site, but also as a vessel for the lingering energy of the past, preserving memories of dedication, tragedy, and the unending vigilance required of life at sea. Rhode Island Pier endures as a place where history and the supernatural meet. Shadows, whispers, footsteps, flickering lights, and chilling sensations remind visitors that the bay has long held secrets that refuse to fade. The spirits of sailors and keepers remain tied to the pier, eternally watching the waves and the lighthouse, ensuring that the legacy of those who served and those who were lost continues to resonate with all who walk upon this haunted waterfront. Point Judith Rocks, located off the coast of Narragansett, Rhode Island, is a place where the treacherous shoreline meets the spectral world. These jagged rocks have long been notorious for shipwrecks, claiming the lives of countless sailors over the centuries. Today, the area is said to be haunted by the spirits of those lost at sea. Visitors frequently report seeing ghostly figures among the rocks, hearing cries for help carried through the thick fog, and witnessing lights that seem to glow from nowhere. Some claim that both the spirits of sailors and lighthouse keepers linger here, bound forever to the unforgiving waters, their presence a constant reminder of the dangers of the Atlantic. Approaching Point Judith Rocks, one immediately senses the raw power of the ocean. Waves crash relentlessly against the jagged stones, creating a constant roar that echoes across the coastline. The salt-laden air carries a damp chill, and the fog rolls in quickly, softening the horizon and blurring the line between land, sea, and sky. Even during daylight, the rocks exude a foreboding presence. Wooden remains from past shipwrecks jut from the water, and occasional driftwood sways with the current, lending the area an eerie stillness that contrasts with the violent movement of the surf. Visitors often report a feeling of being watched, a sense that unseen eyes are tracking their every step as they move closer to the rocks. Auditory phenomena are among the most striking reports from Point Judith Rocks. Witnesses frequently hear cries for help, carried over the wind and waves as if replaying the final moments of those who perished. These sounds can be subtle, almost imperceptible, or startlingly loud, echoing off the rocks with a haunting resonance. Some visitors report hearing footsteps along the stone edges, the scraping of metal from old shipwrecks, or the rhythmic creaking of timbers long submerged. Whispered voices also carry across the fog, sometimes naming the lost or repeating instructions that may have been shouted during storms long ago. The combination of natural sounds from the ocean and these spectral noises creates an atmosphere that is at once mesmerizing and unnerving, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who ventures near the rocks. Visual phenomena enhance the haunting presence at Point Judith Rocks. Ghostly figures are often seen moving among the stones, appearing to climb or step carefully across the jagged terrain. These apparitions sometimes resemble sailors in period clothing, struggling as though trying to survive a storm, while others appear as lighthouse keepers, silently observing the waters. Many witnesses report seeing flickering lights hovering just above the rocks or glinting across the water, with no apparent source. Some interpret these lights as lanterns held by spirits attempting to guide lost ships, while others see them as residual energy from tragedies long past. Occasionally, visitors report glimpsing entire silhouettes rising from the sea itself, moving toward the rocks before fading into mist. Physical sensations accompany the visual and auditory experiences. Many visitors describe sudden drops in temperature near the rocks or along the shoreline, as if the air itself carries the chill of the sea and the presence of the dead. Some report feeling an unseen touch on their shoulders or the sensation of someone walking close behind them, particularly when navigating narrow paths or slippery stones. These encounters, fleeting yet intense, reinforce the impression that the spirits of sailors and keepers remain present, retracing the paths of their last moments and maintaining their eternal watch over the sea. The history of Point Judith Rocks provides context for the ongoing paranormal activity. The area has been a hazard to shipping for centuries, with numerous documented shipwrecks occurring due to storms, hidden rocks, and treacherous currents. Lighthouse keepers stationed nearby were tasked with maintaining beacons to prevent these tragedies, often living in isolation and witnessing the loss of life firsthand. Many keepers themselves perished, succumbing to storms or accidents while performing their duties. Experts in paranormal studies suggest that locations marked by repeated danger, death, and human labor often retain spiritual energy. And Point Judith Rocks exemplifies this phenomenon. The combination of tragic deaths, persistent maritime labor, and environmental harshness makes the site highly conducive to ghostly manifestations. Visitors often leave Point Judith Rocks with a deep sense of reverence and unease. The cries, ghostly figures, flickering lights, sudden chills, and eerie sensations create an immersive haunting that connects the present with the past. Witnesses frequently report a lingering impression of the spirit's presence, feeling as though the sailors and keepers continue their efforts to navigate, warn, and survive the treacherous waters. The rocks serve not only as a historical landmark, but also as a repository of lingering spiritual energy, preserving the memories of lives lost, the dedication of keepers, and the ongoing dangers of the Atlantic. Point Judith Rocks endures as a place where the maritime past and the supernatural intersect. Shadows, cries, whispers, flickering lights, and chilling sensations remind visitors that the sea has long claimed lives, and that those lost there may never find peace. The spirits of sailors and keepers remain bound to the rocks and the waters they once traversed, eternally watching the waves, warning the living, and keeping alive the memory of the countless tragedies that have unfolded along this perilous stretch of coastline. And there you have 25 haunted lighthouses in Rhode Island, where lights never die. Shadows linger on the rocks, and restless spirits patrol the coast. These lighthouses remind us that not all lights guide the living, some illuminate the paths of those trapped between this world and the next. If this journey into Rhode Island's haunted beacons sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another ghostly tale. Until next time, tread carefully along the foggy shores, and listen closely, because some spirits never leave their watch.